Yiling felt a fit of comfort for no reason after hearing Song Xiaoqin's words. Although she was of the Yi family and looked like a princess, only she knew the hardship within. She needed to put on a happy face when she went home and needed to ridicule Yi Zifeng. That wasn't all. She even needed to secretly use the money she saved and stole to ask Gu Luo for help. Today it was her first time seeing her opponent act low in front of her. She even forgot the disgust when Yemo killed. "You want me to let you go?" Yemo looked at Song Xiaoqin and blandly said, "Yes, as long as you are willing to have mercy, I will pay you back 10 times. Hearing Yemo's tone soften, Song Xiaoqin said hurriedly, "He's called Gu Luo? This name is really strange and I detest this guy." Yemo looked once at Gu Luo. Hearing Yemo's words, Song Xiaoqin's eyes suddenly turned cold and pulled out a small 3-edged prick from somewhere and just stabbed it onto Gu Luo's back without hesitation. When the prick was fully submerged, Gu Luo then turned around and looked at Song Xiaoqin in disbelief. He pointed with his finger wanting to say something, but eventually he couldn't. He just looked with fury as he fell to the ground. Perhaps he couldn't understand why he would die in Song Xiaoqin's hands after serving him for so long. Yemo thought that this Song Xiaoqin was a cruel character. He actually knew where to pierce so that one would die the quickest. It definitely wasn't his first time doing this. Yiling looked at Gu Luo fall to the ground with massive amount of blood emerging from his back like a spring, and she finally couldn't take it as she fainted in Yemo's arms. "Young Master Chun." Gu Luo's 2 henchmen looked at Song Xiaoqin and couldn't believe that he would kill his most trusted man. They didn't know if they should attack Song Xiaoqin or still be on the same team with him. Just when the two were still hesitating, Song Xiaoqin already charged over and killed another. The remaining one reacted, and when Song Xiaoqin stabbed towards him, he actually pulled out a knife and stabbed it into Song Xiaoqin's left shoulder. Although Song Xiaoqin was injured, it wasn't lethal. Plus, the damage of the knife was far from that of the prick. The man holding the knife was killed, but Song Xiaoqin could still stand up and looked worriedly at Yemo. Yemo looked coldly at Song Xiaoqin. He killed without any moral burden, and he was killing his trusted men. His actions were swift without any hesitation. It could be seen that not only was he cruel but also had some power. When he was talking to him before, he still seemed shaky, but Yemo would never believe him. Song Xiaoqin was obviously acting, but he acted too much. Regardless whether he was acting or not, Yemo wouldn't let this guy go. "Brother Yi, I've already done as you told and killed these few people you don't like." Then Song Xiaoqin took out a bag from his pocket and said, "This is the Yi family's Feng Shui Dragon Balls. I only told Yi Ling to get 2. Song Xiaoqin walked to a chair with pale face and put the bag on the chair. Although his shoulder was bleeding heavily, but he didn't seem to notice it. Instead, he opened the bag and said, "I'll show it to you." Yemo just stared coldly at Song Xiaoqin. He was very smart and cunning, but Yemo had already seen the evil in his eyes with his spirit sense. Even if he didn't, he knew that Song Xiaoqin's actions were abnormal. His hand was already so heavily injured, but he didn't stop the bleeding and instead was going to open up the bag. If it really was the dragon balls inside, he could have just given it to him. Thinking about this, Yemo scanned the bag with his spirit sense. At this moment, however, Song Xiaoqin pulled out a gun from the bag with unimaginable speed. At the same time, his gun was already pointed at Yemo. This was all done in less than 2 seconds. Song Xiaoqin had a lot of faith in his gun prowess and his speed was very fast. The gun was pointed at Yemo's head. He didn't think Yemo could still live after getting shot in the head. Even if Yemo was a disciple of ancient martial arts, he wouldn't be able to dodge this. Thinking that he was about to kill Yemo, Song Xiaoqin was excited. He could almost already see the leader of the Song families praise him, and that the first in the 3rd generation title would be his. But in the spur of a moment, Song Xiaoqin didn't have this thought anymore. He just looked at Yemo, who stared at him with cold eyes as though a monkey being stupid. At the tip between his fingers was a bullet. Yemo noticed Song Xiaoqin's actions as soon as he took the gun out of the bag. The moment Song Xiaoqin fired, Yemo used his spirit chi to form a force field, and the bullet was slowed down. That way, Yemo caught the bullet easily. Even if he fired when Yemo wasn't ready, although Yemo wouldn't be able to catch the bullet, he would still be able to dodge it. Song Xiaochen seemed like he saw a ghost and made a sound after a long while. You can catch a bullet, you? He was dumbfounded. This was the first time he met someone who could catch bullet. No one would believe it. Seeing Song Xiaochen's worried look, Yemo sneered. Don't worry, I won't kill you now. Then, the bullet in his hand dropped to the floor in a clank. Song Xiaochen's heart skipped. Although he was still on the edge, he gradually calmed down after hearing Yemo's words. Of course, Yemo wouldn't kill Song Xiaochen now. Although he could and knew the Song family wouldn't do anything to him, he was just scared that if the Song family was infuriated and fought with him, then Dongfang Shi's prediction would quite possibly come true. If Yemo and the Song family fought, no matter how he beat up the Song family, he would only have one choice, and that was to leave the country. In Yemo's perspective, even if he was to fight the Song family, he couldn't do it overtly. He could make them feel scared, but he couldn't force them into a corner. He could kill Gu Luo and his henchmen, but he couldn't kill Song Xiaochen now. He still needed to do the after-work for the business in the room. Yemo believed that Song Xiaochen didn't dare to make it known, and neither did the Song family. Plus, this was Beijing, not the borderlands. It was fine to kill at the borderlands, but not in Beijing. Now that so many died in the room, and despite most of them were killed by Song Xiaochen, someone needed to take care of the aftermath. It was better to leave Song Xiaochen to do that. Yemo wasn't an idiot. He had arrived at Beijing for more than a day and still didn't receive any attacks or threats. That meant the Song family was holding themselves back. Perhaps what happened in Sina had already reached the Song family. Yemo would definitely not believe that the Song family didn't know he arrived at Beijing, because when he came, he just waltzed right in. Yemo patted his hand and took out the 2 Dragon Balls and looked. He couldn't help but to shake his head. It was just 2 normal magic artifacts with a sliver of spirit chi. Song Xiaochen looked at Yemo and didn't dare to move. He now understood why the leader ordered not to touch Yemo. He was too scary. No wonder he could kill Wuxia. Yemo looked at Song Xiaochen and patted his shoulder. Song Xiaochen felt as though a big metal hammer whacked his heart a few times. That pressure made him faint. After burning away the bodies in the room, Song Xiaochen woke up again and found that all the bodies had disappeared. There was just some blood stains and burnt smell. He didn't know how long he was out for, but he knew it wasn't long. Yemo had dealt with the bodies in such a short time, and Song Xiaochen suddenly felt his body was cold. This was why Yemo couldn't be touched. Do you know why I didn't kill you? Yemo looked at Song Xiaochen, who had a spookily pale face, and said. Song Xiaochen subconsciously shook his head. Yemo smiled. Take care of this place, and perhaps after a few days, you would understand why I didn't kill you. Oh, and tell your leader this. Don't piss me off. Piss me off and I'll make the Song family disappear in one night. Then, Yemo carried the still unconscious Yiling and actually jumped out of the window. Song Xiaochen looked at Yemo disappear and now realized his life was saved. He looked at Yemo jump to the window and was shocked once again. This was 4th story. But he soon knew that it was time to clean up. Thinking about this, Song Xiaochen didn't even have time to dress his wound and just called the family straight away. Just when Yemo didn't know where to take Yiling, Yiling woke up. She saw Yemo carrying her and made a small struggle. Yemo put her down. Yiling stared at Yemo for a while before remembered what happened before. Her face was full of worry. Yemo murdered someone, and she saw it with her own eyes. What to do? Yiling didn't even get time to ask how Yemo came to Beijing and just looked at him and said worriedly, Hurry up and run now. You killed the Song family's man. They won't let you go. Go now. Yemo saw that Yiling wanted him to run and felt touched. Although the things Yiling did was very naive, her intent was to save Yemo and Yi Zifeng. From that perspective, she did suffer many hardships. Yemo knew that Yiling didn't like him, but why did she still do so much for him? Yemo suddenly raised his hand, touched Yiling's hair and sighed. Stupid, if I leave now, you would be dead. Don't worry. Since I can kill Song Xiaochen and still have nothing happen, nothing will happen now. Plus, I didn't kill Song Xiaochen. Yiling felt weird after being touched by Yemo. A faint sense of being cared for circulated her heart. She had never been cared for. Even her brother Yi Zifeng always complained that she was too immature. But now she had this feeling. Her fatigued heart seemed to have something to depend on. She suddenly wanted to lay in Yimo's arms and call him big brother. But at the same time, she felt distant with the Yimo in front of her compared to the original Yimo. The two sunk into silence. But Yiling soon reacted. She thought about Yimo's safety and hurried. You didn't kill Song Xiaochen? Then if he calls the cops on you, where will you go? Even if he doesn't call the cops, the Song family knows you're in Beijing, you still wouldn't be able to escape. What shall we do? Yimo smiled. Don't worry, the Song family doesn't dare to look for me now. Nothing will happen tomorrow. Yimo saw things clearly. Since he came to Beijing and the Song family didn't look for him, then they wouldn't look for him now. Even if they were to, it would be after they've completely investigated the situation. If Song Jiaming knew he could come back safely from the Nanqing's HQ and still look for trouble with him without any reason, then the Song family wouldn't be still alive today. Yiling looked at Yimo in a daze. She didn't know why Yimo said the Song family didn't dare to look for him. She also knew that Yimo wasn't the same as before. Although Yimo didn't kill Song Xiaochen, he still left a time bomb on him. Song Xiaochen didn't have long to live. Yimo thought that after he left Beijing, the Song family wouldn't be able to do anything to him, but they could attack Yiling and Yi Zifeng. Thinking about this, Yimo felt like he had a headache. Now, he didn't dare to overtly eradicate the Song family. Since he couldn't, he needed to worry about this. Seeing that Yimo was in thought, Yiling said, "Where would you stay tonight?" Yiling wanted to call him brother but couldn't. The original Yimo had too much of a bad impression in her mind. Yimo came back from his thought and decided he would think about it later. Now that Yiling asked, he said, "I have a place to live. What about you? I'll send you back." I'm living at campus." Yiling wanted to ask how Yimo had been, but didn't know where to start. Plus, she saw the ordinary clothes on him and knew he wasn't living a wealthy life. Perhaps he was even living a desolate life. She was scared that if she asked, Yimo would be sad. She didn't know where he got his powers from, but eventually, she couldn't resist and asked. Yimo didn't know where to start, so he simply described his life and didn't mention him going to the desert and being hunted. These things were too distant with Yiling's life. He didn't want Yiling to be worried. From Yiling, Yimo heard that Yi Zifeng had been very busy recently, but Yiling didn't know why. Yi Zifeng barely discussed such things with Yiling. The two walked as they talked and came back to Hua Uni. At the door, Yimo remembered Zhuo Yangqing. He looked around and Zhuo Yangqing was long gone. "Go back to the dorms first, I'm going. Tomorrow, find Zifeng, we need to talk." Yimo sent Yiling to the door. He wanted to go scout at the Song family. If the Song family decided to shatter the glass and fight him, he needs to be prepared. "Come inside and have a seat." Seeing Yimo was going, Yiling couldn't resist to say. She still had a lot of things she wanted to talk about, plus Yimo changed too much that made her feel dependent on him. At the moment, she actually didn't want him to leave. Yimo hesitated and saw the males are forbidden sign. Although he also went to uni at Ninghai, he had never been to the female dorms. Now that the weather was getting warmer, it didn't seem appropriate to go into the female dorms. Yiling saw Yimo's gaze and knew he was worrying he couldn't go in, so she hurried to say, "It's okay. The Hema at the door is very nice to me. She'll definitely let you in. Plus, all of the girls in my dorm aren't here tonight. They are going to a social with Sure Uni." Originally, Yimo didn't worry about going in, he had too many ways to, but he was just worried it would affect others. Now that Yiling said this, he wanted to go in and see too. He just wanted to see if he could set up a simple defense formation there. And he wanted to talk to Yiling. If she didn't want to stay in Beijing, she could go to Luotsang. It was just as Yiling said. The auntie at the door just looked once at Yimo and didn't stop him from going in. Yiling's dorm was closed and it was pitch black. Yiling was right. The girls weren't back. Yimo habitually scanned his spirit sense out and was immediately shocked. There were still 3 people inside the dorm. Just when Yimo wanted to tell Yiling that, Yiling had opened the door and said, "Come in, there's no one inside." Before Yiling finished speaking, the light was opened, scaring Yiling. In the middle of the table was a big cake. The three girls saw Yi Ling come in and all yelled, "Happy birthday, Ling!" However, the three soon saw Yi Mo behind her and yelled in surprise. One of the girl who just wore shorts quickly took a pair of pants and put them on. "You guys?" Yi Ling was shocked at the scene in front of her. One of the taller-looking girl reacted and said, "Ling Zi, didn't think you would be celebrating your birthday with your boyfriend. We still wanted to give you a surprise. Hey, hurry up and introduce him. He's really handsome." Yi Ling just remembered that today was her birthday. She was so busy that she forgot. She couldn't help but feel grateful to her dorm mates for preparing this for her. She immediately said, "Xiao Dan, Lulu, Tianhe, thank you guys so much. You remembered my birthday. Eat the cake later. Lulu is right. Introduce your boyfriend. We can't wait. This is the first time you brought your boyfriend back." That short-haired girl also said, "You guys are mistaken. This isn't my boyfriend." Yi Ling waved her hand. "Pfft. You brought him back and you even said, 'No one's here, you can come in.' Did you think we didn't hear it? Do you think we're third-wheeling? Don't worry, after you introduce, we can give you guys some space. Hima just called to say you're back. But she never said you brought a boyfriend," the short-haired girl said. Yi Mo touched his nose awkwardly. He didn't think Yi Ling's classmates were all back. And today was Yi Ling's birthday. It seemed he couldn't tell her about going to Luotsang today. And Yi Ling's friends were all wearing casual clothes. It wasn't convenient for him to stay here. Yi Mo could only say, "How about I go first? We can talk tomorrow." Yi Ling also knew that Yi Mo probably had some things to discuss with her, but now he couldn't say it. She could only nod her head. "Huh? Why are you leaving? You just came in? Today is Yi Ling's birthday, you're not even helping her celebrate it. At least leave after eating the cake or introduce yourself. And you still need to invite us to dinner tomorrow?" That girl wearing shorts finally dropped the awkwardness and said. Dan was seen in her undies. Of course she needed someone to compensate her with food now. "Haha," that short-haired girl said immediately. Yi Mo felt more awkward. He didn't even remember Yi Ling's birthday as her brother, while Yi Ling's dorm mates remembered it. He thought about Su Jingwen's birthday. They both came from big families. Why was Yi Ling's birthday so different to Su Jingwen's? The Yi family was much bigger than the Su family. Thinking about this, Yi Mo felt bitter. Perhaps Yi Ling really had been enduring a lot of hardship these years. Seeing Yi Mo stand silently at the door, Yi Ling thought Yi Mo was thinking about her life and said, "Brother, I don't care that much about my birthday. As long as you and Zifeng is fine, everything is good. Go back first. I'll come look for you tomorrow." Yi Ling hugged Yi Mo after. It was the first time she called Yi Mo brother. But she didn't feel it to be weird at all. Perhaps she would no longer have to live that worrying life. At least Yi Mo was so much better than she had thought. She felt Yi Mo's hug was very firm and warm, giving her a sense of security from the bottom of her heart. That brother made Yi Mo freeze mentally. Ever since coming to this world, it was destined that he would be lonely. But today someone called him brother. This indescribable feeling flowed through Yi Mo's heart that made him decide to protect Yi Ling for her life. Not for anything else, but just for that brother. "Io, so emotional. Ling Zi, you really make people cringe. But your boyfriend is quite handsome. I also want to hug your brother." "Don't be stingy," the short-haired girl said. Of course she was joking. She didn't really mean to go hug Yi Mo. Yi Ling really enjoyed Yi Mo's hug, and hearing what the short-haired girl said, she suddenly smiled and pulled the short-haired girl's hand and dragged her into Yi Mo's arms. She moved aside. "Okay, Tianhe, you can hug for however long you want. I won't be jealous at all. But don't let go." Tianhe was pulled into Yi Mo's arms. Yi Mo wanted to push her away, but was scared he would hurt her feelings. Meanwhile, Tianhe thought it was just a hug, so she wrapped her arms around Yi Mo's waist. Yi Mo didn't feel anything when he was hugged by Yi Ling, but he didn't expect Tianhe to hug him with such force. He immediately felt two balls of softness in front of her chest and that faint aroma of a girl. His blood speed up and he had a biological reaction. His crotch immediately rammed against Tianhe's stomach. He was originally planning to eat a piece of cake, but he hurriedly said, "I'm going." Then he rushed out of the dorms and disappeared. "What's wrong, Tianhe? Why did you scare Ling's boyfriend away? Is it because your chest is too powerful? When Emo left, the two other girls came up and teased her. Tianhe's face was shot red. Although she was acting tough, it was just in her words. However, when the other two girls asked, she recovered and smiled. Ling, your boyfriend's thing is so big. I could feel it. What a man. But I still quite like his hug. He smells very nice. What? You really felt that? It's really big. To their surprise, Yi Ling asked Tianhe with a face full of joy. Tianhe was grabbed by Yi Ling, but this was nothing. When Yi Ling asked that question, the dorm mates were completely shocked. Hey, Ling Z, are you dumb? How can you not know your boyfriend's thing? Why are you asking me? But your boyfriend is really excellent. Sai, I don't know where you found him. Why don't I have that kind of luck? Tianhe also had a boyfriend but was never like Emo, who could give her a refreshing and calm sense during hugs. Okay. We really admire you too. Next time when Ling Z's boyfriend comes, I also want to hug him, the taller girl said. And me? Dan hurried to say. Tianhe threw up the finger. You two cougars, but Ling Z, even if it's really big, you don't need to be so happy. You'll be taking in quite a load. However, Yi Ling murmured, it was indeed a lie. She was thinking about Mo's diagnosis. It was fake. If Tianhe didn't say it today, she would have thought it was real. Now, it seemed that the DNA test was also fake. Her big uncle did this. At this moment, she only felt happy because Mo had completely changed. Although it was very late, the lights were still on at the Song family. Even Song Xiaochen was in the family meeting. Mo's guess was right. The Song family didn't dare to fight Mo at all costs. Song Qiming was very careful. Before he understood Mo's trump card, he didn't dare to move. If Mo really could enter a heavily guarded place like the Nanqing HQ, then it would be all too easy for him to kill everyone in the Song family, especially how Mo did things without thinking the consequences. Thinking about their conflict with Mo, Song Qiming's face was very bad. It was too embarrassing for such a powerful family to not be able to touch Mo. If it was someone else or even a gang, the Song family could get rid of them easily. Xiaochen, did you just say in the blink of an eye, all the bodies in the room disappeared? He could even catch a bullet. Song Hai needed to be clear on this. He had been responsible for the intel of the family. This was the first time he heard of such a capability of Mo, and that meant he didn't do his job well. Yes, Uncle Hai, I didn't say a single lie. He could really stop the bullet with 2 fingers. My pistol is the Howard PPK. You should know its speed, but he caught it with his finger. Plus, I'm sure I wasn't out for more than 5 minutes. When I woke up, nothing changed except the bodies have disappeared. Song Xiaochen still felt fear when saying this. Song Qiming looked with one eye towards Song Hai and wanted to ask about Sai Na, but remembered that he just sent out the order today, so things shouldn't be this fast. Song Hai's heart was skipping. Although the leader didn't say anything, he knew that he hadn't been able to find out a lot of Mo's powers. He didn't do his job properly. He had made up his mind to increase the intensity of the research in Sai Na. He couldn't make a mistake again. Seeing Song Hai's expression, Song Qiming didn't pay more attention to him. He turned his head and asked Song Xiaochen, what else did he say? Song Xiaochen looked worriedly at Song Qiming's furious face and answered after some hesitation. When he left, he told me to bring back a message. He said don't piss him off. If we do, he will make the Song family disappear in one night. And when he left, he carried Yi Ling and jumped from the 4th floor. What? Song Qiming obviously heard it, but he exclaimed in shock. If Mo could jump off by himself, he wouldn't be so shocked. But carrying a person and jumping off the 4th floor, this was absurd. Just when everyone thought the leader would be angry by Mo's threat, Song Qiming calmed down instead. He started to contemplate, and after a while, he looked at Song Qikhan and said, Qikhan, what do you think? Song Qikhan frowned and said, according to Mo's habits and what Xiaochen reported, if Mo said that, it means he can really do it. My opinion is to wait for the result of the Sai Na investigation. After we know Mo's limits, then we can make a move. Plus, if we are to move, we can't do it alone. We need to invite some people. Of course, we must also notify who chose master. Song Chiming nodded. This is what I think too. Okay, that's it for today. When the investigation comes out, we'll have another meeting. But before this, if anyone dares to look for trouble with EMO or someone related to him, I won't let him go. Dismissed. EMO left Tsinghua University and prepared to look for a place to stay when his phone rang. It was Li Hu. He was very happy when he knew that EMO came to Beijing. He just said he was busy in the day and his phone was shut. EMO just said a location when his phone shut down. He hadn't charged this phone, and it just answered 2 phone calls before running out of battery. Now, EMO still hadn't ate yet. Originally, Shui Yangqing wanted to invite him to dinner, but due to Qing Sun's things, Shui Yangqing didn't have the time to redeem it. So EMO went to look for Yi Lingli, who came very quickly and drove a normal jeep. As soon as he got off, he grabbed EMO's hands excitedly. Brother Yi, if it wasn't for you last time, we would have probably died, much less retrieved the item. I've been waiting for days, and you're finally here. Let's go. You should sleep at my place tonight. You must come to my base with me tomorrow. Those brats keep saying I'm bragging. You need to help me teach them a lesson. Li Hu was straightforward and very social, and he already saw EMO as his friend. EMO could tell that this guy had been bragging about him in front of others, but they couldn't find him, so his words were ignored. EMO smiled. He didn't have the time to help Li Hu show off. He just wanted to get his money and solve the problems here so he could go back to Cultivate. The more people he got into conflict with, the more he felt his power was insignificant. From Lang Ji's mouth, EMO heard that Xian Daoist in Metal River was much stronger than Wu Chang. Moreover, it was said that he was about to break through. If things were really as Lang Ji said, then his powers would only seem overwhelming to normal people, but for the real strong people out there, he was still missing a bit. Thinking about this, how could EMO have the mood to show off in front of normal soldiers? Li Hu stayed at the intense training quarters at Beijing. That's not what EMO expected. The defense here was serious, and there were surveillance equipment everywhere. If Li Hu didn't take him in, it would really make him sweat to come in. Plus, EMO didn't know if his invisibility could evade the top-grade military cameras. And Li Hu was indeed a good friend. He didn't even investigate who EMO was before bringing him in. He knew the rules, but he still did so, meaning that he considered EMO a true friend. Li Hu got some food and ate as they chatted together. EMO also knew this place was to train all sorts of special ops. This period, it was his turn. He was the captain of the Flying Fox squad. Li Hu wasn't called Li Hu before, but after he joined Flying Fox, he changed his name. One could tell that he had deep feelings for this squad just from his name. Then Flying Fox is the country's top special ops? EMO curiously asked. If that really was the case, then EMO would be disappointed. Although he hadn't seen Li Hu in action, but he was at most the same level as Wendong or even worse. Since he was the captain, it meant that he was the strongest in Flying Fox. If even the strongest was at this standard, then the squad wasn't going to be very strong. Li Hu didn't know EMO's power. In his eyes, EMO was mysterious other than being straightforward. He went in and out of the desert with ease, so he knew EMO was much stronger than him. Now that EMO asked, Li Hu shook his head. Our squad is a far cry from the best. However, the members of Flying Fox are pretty excellent. You have seen our missions. In harsher words, we're police. In other words, we deal with the more serious criminals. Then, Li Hu took out a card and gave it to EMO. This is the money. It's supposed to be $500,000, but because the thing was perfectly fine and no men were lost, my boss gave an extra $100,000. Altogether, it's $600,000. The password is all 0. Of course, I know that this is just, as Feng Tian said, less than 10% of its actual worth. So Yi brother, I owe you. EMO took the card and smiled. If I didn't sell that to you, perhaps I would have thrown it away. It's free money I earned. No need to say anything else. He didn't lie. When he was being hunted by the insects, he even threw his bag away. He definitely wouldn't have left this small model that he didn't know with him. Luckily, he gave it to Li Hu, or his $600,000 would have been gone. Li Hu didn't think EMO would throw away something so important and thought EMO was just being polite. He admired Yi Mo more for his generosity. Brother Yi, there's also someone called Yi Mo in Beijing, and he's from the Yi family, but it's said he was kicked out of the Yi family. Haha, if that Yi Mo had 10% of your excellence, that Yi old man would have treated him like the future of the Yi family. Li Hu and Yi Mo chatted for a while. He felt Yi Mo was very open and soon thought of him as a friend, so he talked casually. Yi Mo smiled. I'm that Yi Mo you're talking about, but I'm not as powerful as you say. Treat me like the future of the Yi family? I don't care, much less they won't. Huh? Li Hu looked at Yi Mo in shock. He didn't think that the person in front of him was the abandoned son of that Yi family. Zhuo Yangqing was annoyed. One was because Yi Mo went against his word and didn't wait for her at the door of the school, and another was due to Qing Sun. The more she thought, the angrier she got. It was just 10 minutes' time, and the doctor she had longed for was gone. So this morning, she came to the door of Tsinghua University and wanted to see if she could wait for Yi Mo. If she couldn't, then she would ask Yi Ling and see if Yi Mo came for her. What made her angrier was Yi Mo didn't arrive. But the person she didn't want to see the most was here. Qing Sun had some flowers and walked over, guiltily saying, Yang Qing, it was my bad yesterday. I'm sorry. Please accept my apology. These flowers are for you. Zhuo Yangqing looked contemptuously at Qing Sun. Who do you think you are to apologize to me? I'm telling you, from today on, I don't know you. If I go against my words, let the heavens destroy me. Piss off. Zhuo Yangqing was so angry that her fire could burn a lake dry, but Qing Sun had to come and piss her off. If it wasn't for him, then perhaps she would have invited Yi Mo. Now, she lost news of Yi Mo, and her grandpa was in danger. Even she couldn't forgive herself, much less a mere Qing Sun. Moreover, she had already warned him not to look for her. But today, this guy came right in the morning. She thought about how something that could be done in 2 minutes was dragged on for more than 10 minutes by Qing Sun. In the end, all it came to was a discord, and she even missed Yi Mo. Although Yi Mo said he was Yi Ling's brother, who knew if he would stay in Beijing. Everyone knew Yi Ling looked down on Yi Mo. If he left Beijing again, she would not even have a place to cry to. Hearing Zhuo Yangqing's words, Qing Sun's face turned pale. He didn't expect Zhuo Yangqing to say such determined words. This essentially severed any intentions he could have for her. He really didn't want to give up the second most prettiest girl in Beijing. Yangqing, you actually said such words? Who was that guy yesterday? You're being so heartless with me over him. Qing Sun said with hatred. Fuck you, who is he to me? What's that got to do with you? He's my boyfriend, so what? Are you going to kill me? Don't appear in front of my eyes again. Then, Zhuo Yangqing turned to leave. She wanted to go to the dorms and ask Yi Ling. Although she didn't know Yi Ling well, they heard of each other. After all, in the uni she was ranked second, and Yi Ling was ranked third in terms of beauty. Qing Sun's face was green and stared coldly at Zhuo Yangqing as evil flashed across his eyes. In the morning when Yi Mo and Li Hu came to the training base, there were nearly 100 people already training. Yi Mo looked at these Flying Fox members. They were indeed not bad but still very immature to Yi Mo. However, it was quite decent they could achieve this in a training ground. Yi Mo, how about you have a few rounds with them? Li Hu saw Yi Mo smile as he looked at these members, so he said, Captain Li, is this the mysterious hero you keep telling us about? A sturdy youth came up in front of Yi Mo and said challengingly. Li Hu looked at the youth and had an evil smile on his face. Yeah. Lu Gang, do you want to fight him? Of course I do. Lu Gang was up for the challenge. He hoped for an immediate match so the whole squad would know his power. Lu Gang believed that he wouldn't lose even if he fought against Li Hu, much less a youth who looked scholarly. He was going to defeat Yi Mo and then say to Li Hu, Captain, your eyes are very good. Yi Mo smiled. Of course, he wasn't going to be so bored and fight these people. These people weren't even 1/10 as strong as Hu Qiu. He really had no interest in fighting them. Seeing Li Hu look over, Yi Mo said, I don't want to fight. They are no match for me. Even if they all come at once. It's boring for me as well. Yi Mo didn't need to be humble. He was indeed saying the truth. Lu Gang heard Yi Mo's words, and his face was bright red. He didn't think Emo would be so rude and just say he was no match for him. Not only this, he also said that the 100 of them was also no match for him. This was way too arrogant. Great bluff. Before Lu Gang had time to say more, someone interrupted. Elder Han, how are you here? Lu Gang saw the person coming and quickly greeted with a face full of respect. Emo also saw the people who came. There were 5 of them. The leader was an old man in his 60s. 2 police guards followed him. Other than that, there was a man in his 30s and a girl in her 20s. The man who said he was bluffing was the man in his 30s. He scanned across Emo contemptuously. Emo sneered. He could tell the man was not bad, but at most, he was only a little stronger than Wuxia but still no match for him. However, that girl seemed weak, but she gave Emo a much greater threat than that man. This made Emo give the girl a closer look. She looked very quiet and not too pretty but durable to look at. However, Emo soon knew that she was durable to look at due to the art she was cultivating. This woman wasn't simple, perhaps she came from the hidden sex. Ever since these few people came out, almost everyone saluted to the old man. Only Emo did nothing. The man looked more unhappy. You are Emo? The one who helped Li Hu find the model? Elder Han asked. Emo answered, Yes, I'm Emo. I sold the data to Li Hu. I didn't specially go help him find it. Elder Han laughed. Emo, you don't need to be humble. The money you took wasn't even enough for 10% of its real worth, so I can represent the country to thank you. You've contributed greatly to the military. Emo smiled and didn't reply. He didn't have that kind of resolve. If someone gave a higher price than Li Hu and he didn't mind that person, he wouldn't have hesitated to sell it to someone else. Seeing Emo not reply, Li Hu quickly said, Elder Han was one of the commanders in the Beijing military district. He's a lieutenant, Emo. Elder Han already heard Li Hu's words and waved his hand. I've heard from Li Hu of Emo's power in the desert. I heard from people that you were buying a phone in the market yesterday, and I knew you would come looking for Li Hu. Today, I came just to see you. You should be Wentian's son, right? Wentian was supposed to be doing great things, but he left too early. Things were really harsh on you and your siblings. Emo heard this and had some good impression to this Elder Han. If somebody said this to him yesterday, he wouldn't feel anything. But after seeing how Yiling was, he knew how hard things were for her these years. Elder Han is too polite. I should be the going to see you. How can you be visiting me? Emo greeted. Elder Han nodded. I've heard about your things, but Barong and Yuani are my old companions. This time, Barong really looked wrong. You are like your father, Wentian, an elite. You're even better than Wentian. This time, Ning Fusion looked wrong too. Then he shook his head. Elder Han's name was Han Zixin, one of the commanding officers at Beijing Military District. Although he had retired now, he was responsible for a few special ops squads. Flying Fox was one of them. It was also the most famous squad. Flying Snow was also under his command. Emo knew who Barong and Yuani was. It should be the leader of the Yi family, Yi Barong, and the eldest of the Song family, Song Yuani. As for that Ning Fusion, he was probably from the Ning family. After sighing for a while, Elder Han said once again, Emo, if you want to come to my special ops, I can let you go to Flying Snow. That's where the best in the country are gathered. I believe you can step higher at Flying Snow Squad. Plus, if you came to Flying Snow, I'm willing to help you with your issues with the Yi and Song family. Although Li Hu didn't know Emo was from the Yi family, it didn't mean that Han Zixin didn't know. He wasn't too sure either until someone reported to him yesterday. He was reported that Emo came to Beijing yesterday and bought a phone at the supermarket. He immediately came to see what Emo wanted. He wanted to see why this proclaimed human scum, Emo, was so excellent in Li Hu's mouth. And how could he have such enmity with the Song family? Plus, he gave such an important military data so easily. Now that he saw Emo's composed and calm manner as well as his strong confidence and defined features, Han Zixin wanted to take him in for his talent. Although the main thing was due to Emo bringing back the data and donated it to the country, he also wanted to compensate Emo in another way. As for Emo's power, Han Zixin thought it wasn't bad. but it was just the same level as Li Hu. Although he was a talent, but not to the stage where Han Zixin must have him. But even so, he realized how terrifying gossip can be. Emo was no human scum. The manner in which he faced him without fear told him that Emo was no simple man. Even if it was a descendant of a big family, they would be worried and nervous seeing a lieutenant. Emo only seemed to say hi after he talked about his father. Brother Yi said that the entire Flying Fox is no match for you. Du Tao wants to test that. The man who had been behind Elder Han this whole time said at this moment. Blasphemy. Du Tao? You're the instructor of the special ops. What are you fighting with Emo for? Leave. Hearing Du Tao's words, Elder Han reproached immediately. Du Tao saw Elder Han say it so quickly. He backed down with a face of disappointment. Although he was the vice head of the police department in Beijing and one of the instructors for the special ops, he was still a member of Flying Snow. Emo smiled and looked at Du Tao. You are also no match for me. There's no point in fighting you. He wouldn't be polite to this guy. And he didn't want to keep a low profile in Beijing. He would teach those who needed a lesson. You! Du Tao was regretful that he couldn't teach this arrogant Emo a lesson, and now that he was mocked, he was more furious. He immediately bowed to Elder Han. Head, please allow me to spar with Emo. I'll control myself and won't hurt him. Originally, Han Zixin didn't want Du Tao to fight Emo. Du Tao was an intermediate-stage yellow-level martial artist. No matter how strong Emo was, he would only be on the same level as Li Hu and not even reach into the ranks of martial artists. How could he be a match for Du Tao? However, he was really surprised that Emo said such words. In that case, he really wanted to see how strong Emo was. He nodded and said, Okay, since you guys want to fight, then stop appropriately. Du Tao was his trusted man, and Emo was a youth he liked and was Yi Beirong's grandson. If Yi Beirong knew he was very excellent, he would take Emo back into the family. Plus, he contributed an inestimable military data. Although it was still being evaluated, Han Zixin knew that model was worth more than $30 million, and many of its worth were still unknown. This was one of the reasons why he took another look at Emo and came over personally. Unexpectedly, Emo still said, I won't fight with you. My abilities are for killing. I'm not interested in playing with people. Although your leg martial arts are not bad. I've met someone who is 10 times better than you with legs, but he only managed 20 moves under my hand before I disabled his legs. Emo talked without any concern. He could easily tell that Du Tao's martial arts was in his legs, but no matter how good they were, could they be better than Wu Chong's? In Emo's eyes, if Du Tao were to fight Wu Chong, it wouldn't take 50 moves before Du Tao was a dead man. With Elder Han's permission, Du Tao was already rubbing his hands pumped to teach Emo a lesson. But now he heard Emo say that he disabled a person's legs in such a nonchalant tone. His face looked bad. At this moment, the young girl next to Elder Han noticed Emo. She originally thought Emo was ordinary, but why was he so arrogant? And did Emo really see that all of Du Tao's prowess was in his legs? How did he see it? Emo could see her powers, but she couldn't see a bit of Emo's at all. Oh! Hearing Emo's words, Elder Han was interested. He knew that Du Tao's leg arts was not bad. This Emo could tell in one eye. Was there really not much difference between the two? Thinking that Emo might not be much weaker than Du Tao, Elder Han's eyes were excited. He needed human resources the most now. Emo was cold, and he seemed very generous and decisive, not to mention he was still so young. If he was as strong as Du Tao, then taking him into the special forces would mean. Thinking about this, Elder Han could no longer resist and immediately said, Okay, then we'll bring out some winnings, I'll sponsor that. Whoever wins, I'll let him go into the Extreme Weapon Vault and choose a weapon. As soon as he heard Extreme Weapon Vault, Du Tao's eyes lit up. He once had a dagger from the vault, and that helped him through countless dangerous missions. However, he lost it in a mission in Tibet and felt regretful since then. If he could get a strong weapon from the vault, his power would up a level. Emo was disinterested. What weapon could be stronger than the ones he made? He didn't care at all. If he had the material, he would have made a weapon for himself already. Seeing Emo's lack of interest, Li Hu quickly said, Brother Yi, Don't underestimate the vault. It's all the top quality materials. Some are made of materials you've never heard of. A major part of it is from the hidden sections. Hearing that they were from the hidden sects, Yemo was a little interested but not too excited. He said casually, "Don't they say the hidden sects things are hardly seen in the ordinary world? How could it be found in the extreme weapon vault?" Li Hu smiled. "Brother Yi, you're not quite simple knowing about the hidden sects, but the weapons in the vault are not bought but traded with materials. Normally, the country would look for rare materials in all sorts of strange places. Then, these materials are given to the hidden sects which are used to trade for some special weapons." Hearing Li Hu's explanation, Yemo's eyes lit up. Wasn't he looking around for material? How complete would a country's collection be? His storage ring was still missing some material and couldn't be forged. If he could find some high-quality material, then it would be a gift from heaven. Thinking about this, Yemo walked in front of Elder Han and bowed once again. "Elder Han, I don't want the weapons in the vault. I would rather have a few pieces of material. What do you think?" Elder Han heard Li Hu's words just then, and now that Yemo asked, he couldn't help but smile. "The materials are used to trade for weapons. Of course it's fine if you want them, but you need to win first. If you can win against Du Tao, I'll let you choose 10. Yemo smiled. "Okay, thank you." Du Tao was furious. Yemo didn't even take him seriously and sounded as though it was very easy to beat him. Seeing Du Tao, who was extremely angry, Yemo laughed to himself. Just by his attitude, he wouldn't get far in martial arts. "What are you looking at? Come, make it quick. I need to go pick materials after this." Yemo looked at Du Tao and shook his head. In the cultivation realm, fighting someone whom one didn't know about could cause their life with the slightest mistake. Yemo could see Du Tao's power, and that was why he was so arrogant. However, Du Tao didn't know Yemo's power, and felt he could surely beat Yemo. This was the real mistake. Hearing Yemo's words, Du Tao just charged up and attacked. However, Yemo acted as if he didn't see it at all and remained stationary. Judging by Du Tao's personality, he would use his legs straight up and try to beat him down using the shortest time, without using his fists at all. And it was just as Yemo expected. Du Tao's fists were hollow attacks as he concentrated his power on his legs. Before Du Tao's fist reached, his right leg kicked like a straight line as if a whirlwind. Yemo nodded. Du Tao's legs were far cry from Wu Chang, but his speed was nearing the latter's. Wu Chang's legs were not only fast but also powerful. Even with Yemo's power, his legs felt pain after kicking Wu Chang's leg 20 times. Du Tao's speed was just below Wu Chang's, but his power and angel was a far cry from Wu Chang. Moreover, Du Tao had this implausible idea. He wanted to kick Yemo with his left leg after his right leg connected. This, Yemo could tell from how the opponent charged power on his left leg. Yemo shook his head. He didn't know what Du Tao was thinking. If he could beat Yemo, he would only need his right leg, but he wanted to switch to left leg purely for aesthetics. This guy was really pretentious. He really overestimated himself, thinking that he could kick a guy, whom he had never fought before, flying. The woman beside Elder Han saw that Yemo didn't even move under Du Tao's hollow attack and immediately frowned. Of course, she could tell Du Tao's fists were hollow, but she didn't expect Yemo to see it as well. She wouldn't believe that Yemo didn't have time to react. And not only did Yemo not move, he also looked at Du Tao's left leg and even shook his head. This woman immediately understood that Yemo could tell Du Tao's intentions. The act was pretty, but it was impractical, and it would only be effective on an opponent far weaker than him. As expected, Yemo slightly sidestepped and didn't even move his hand. However, he kicked his left leg towards Du Tao's leg a few times. Even that woman didn't see Yemo's movements clearly, and Yemo had already switched to his right leg before kicking Du Fei many meters away. Yemo attacked Du Tao the exact same way he did against Wu Chang, but it was just easier. When Du Tao's leg collided with Yemo's, he rejoiced. He felt that the power on his leg wasn't something Yemo could handle. Just when he was prepared to hear Yemo cry out in pain and switch leg in midair to kick Yemo away beautifully, there was a piercing pain from his right leg, rendering him unable to kick with his left leg. Du Tao was shocked and immediately knew things weren't good. Just when he wanted to retreat, Yemo kicked his right leg onto his stomach. His head buzzed and couldn't believe that he was kicked flying. The position was exactly what he wanted to kick Yemo with. So fast, these were the only 2 words in his brain. He only lasted 5 moves and was kicked flying by Yemo. That woman saw that Yemo actually did what Du Tao wanted cleanly, and even more aesthetically pleasing than Du Tao's imagination. Her heart moved and had a strong urge to fight Yemo. But eventually, she suppressed this desire. Although she was sure she wouldn't lose to Yemo, she didn't want to expose her power in front of everyone. Du Tao fell to the ground and couldn't get up. However, Han Zixin was shocked. He clearly knew who Du Tao was, and even in the Flying Snow Squad he wasn't average. Moreover, he was also a yellow-ranked master. But he couldn't even last a few moves in front of Yemo, Lu Gang, and Li Hu were also shocked. Li Hu knew Yemo was strong but didn't expect him to be this strong. Lu Gang was more shocked. He was still planning to battle Yemo too. But now that just seemed ridiculous. Not even 10 of him were a match for Du Tao. But Du Tao lost so completely in front of Yemo. Han Zixin also knew about martial arts and knew that if it was a life-or-death battle, Du Tao would die faster. No wonder the Song family couldn't do anything about Yemo so far. He was so strong. Where did he learn this from? Did he reach the black level of martial arts? Thinking about how Flying Snow Squad would be so much stronger if Yemo joined them, Han Zixin was lost in thought. No, he must have Yemo in his squad. Yemo didn't care about Du Tao he kicked flying. He only cared about how much materials he could get from the keep. He saw Elder Han seem to be lost in thought, so he could only walk over and say, "Elder Han." Han Zixin gasped for some air, and felt Yemo was cuter and cuter. He really was someone special. Luckily, he suddenly thought of coming to see Yemo today. Otherwise, where would he find someone valuable like Yemo? Only a descendant of ancient martial arts sects could match Yemo. But Yemo was obviously not from those sects. If he was, how would the Song family dare to look for trouble with him? How would the Yi family be willing to kick him out? Yemo, I really didn't expect you to be so strong. Good. Good, good. Then, Han Zixin studied Yemo and looked at him as though he was studying some treasure. Yemo felt helpless and could only wait for Han Zixin to talk. At this moment, Du Tao had crawled up. Other than some pain on his leg, he was fine. He looked at Yemo with reverence from afar. He didn't expect Yemo to be so strong. This was the strongest opponent he had ever faced. Now, he believed Yemo's words. His power was for killing, not for playing. If Yemo wanted to kill him just then, even a few of him would have died. He originally thought he was not bad. Now, it seemed he was still intolerably weak in front of the truly strong. And Yemo had a lot of killing chi. He said that he debilitated someone with a much strong leg martial arts than him, and now it seemed to be true. Someone like Yemo didn't seem to be willing to lie about this. Thinking that if he pissed Yemo off and he could potentially debilitate his leg too, he felt helpless. He shivered at the thought. Yemo must not be offended. He heard Yemo offended the Song family but was still fine. That seemed to be true. However, it was not that the Song family didn't bother to deal with him, but they just didn't dare to. After Han Zixin repeated the words good, he stared at Yemo passionately and said, "Yemo, join Flying Snow Squad. You must join. You can be the instructor." Yemo shook his head. "Elder Han, I'm not interested in joining the army. I'm only interested in the materials in the keep. No, you must join Flying Snow Squad. If you don't, I won't let you choose the material." In a fit of worry, Han Zixin threatened Yemo with the material. Yemo smiled calmly. "In that case, Li Hu, I'll be leaving." Then, he turned and left as though Han Zixin was just air. Seeing that Yemo was leaving, Han Zixin was worried and quickly pulled Yemo's clothes. "Brother Yi, you mustn't leave. We can discuss about this, just look at the materials first. Then we can talk, I beg you." Yemo, who was originally pissed off, saw Han Zixin's expression and couldn't really get angry, so he freed his clothes and said, "In that case, please send someone with me." "No need, no need. I'll go with you myself." Han Zixin felt he had grasped a bit of Yemo's personality and spoke quickly. Yemo wasn't hesitant in getting his material as he won that. Now that Han Zixin said this, He immediately said, "In that case, thank you, Elder Han. But if there's something I don't want to do, no one can force me, even the Heavenly Emperor." Yimo's last words weren't polite at all. Du Tao and Li Hu's mouth spasmed but didn't argue. If it was before the fight, Du Tao would sneer at Yimo, but now he felt he didn't have the right to. However, the woman beside Han Zixin frowned and seemed to want to say something but eventually didn't. Han Zixin knew his words before were unreasonable, so he wasn't angry at Yimo and instead said, "We can discuss about joining the squad later. Let's go see the material first. You're free to join if you want." Although he spoke like that, Han Zixin was thinking about how he could keep Yimo. It seemed he had pissed Yimo off a little. Yes, how could a master like him be willingly constrained? If he was really that easy to talk to, the Song family would have devoured him already. Other than the two guards, only that girl could accompany Han Zixin into the keep. Not even Du Tao could go in and had to wait outside. Even the two guards could only stand at the door and not go in. Whether it was the extreme weapon keep or the materials keep, it was heavily guarded. Yimo suspected that without Han Zixin's lead, it would be very troublesome even for him if he wanted to come in. Although he wasn't into high-tech, it didn't mean he knew nothing. After all, he studied for so long at Ninghai University, so he knew even about laser passages. There was one in the long corridor leading to extreme weapon keep. Yimo knew that he didn't have a way to pass it now, unless he didn't touch the ground and the laser didn't activate. However, normal laser passages didn't need people to be on the ground. The motion sensor could activate the laser. Thinking about the rays of laser, Yimo felt stunned at heart too. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't stop the light rays, and he might even be cut into pieces, unless he had reached Foundation establishment or had a strong defense artifact. It seemed that his power was still too weak and he underestimated the means of a country. Since they could have these passages, it also meant that there were similar weapons. Although it wouldn't be as strong as the one in the passage, it should be enough to threaten him. Han Zixin didn't know about this. In order to attract Yimo, he took him to the extreme weapons keep first because he thought Yimo would immediately be attracted after coming into the keep. However, what made Han Zixin surprised was that Yimo shook his head in disappointment after looking at the wide collection of weapons. He turned his head and asked, "Elder Han, didn't you say there were materials? Why are they all normal weapons?" Normal weapons? Han Zixin's mouth spasmed. The special ops working for him all felt glory for coming in here and picking a weapon. However, in Yimo's eyes, they were only normal. It could be said that each weapon here was worth much more than the 600k he acquired. However, his eyes weren't good enough to pick it up. Now that Yimo asked, he could only say, "Yes, it's the keep beside here." Then, Han Zixin took Yimo to the other storage keep. Yimo noticed that when Yimo said he didn't see any material, Han Zixin's expression was that his views were too low, but that woman frowned. Obviously, she didn't want Yimo to go in. When Yimo went in, he saw more materials. Although there was a lot of variety, most of them were useless to Yimo. Many metals and steel were unattractive to Yimo. Han Zixin thought that Yimo would look carefully at all these material and would take a long time. However, Yimo just walked straight to a few mining stones and held them. He didn't know that Yimo had spirit sense and could tell what things they were just by scanning them. Although most materials were useless to Yimo, Yimo rejoiced at finding two each of the purple copper essence or silver sand or an extreme wind stone. Moreover, he also found an extreme grade black jade. Yimo was very happy to have these 7 stones. But it was a pity that he didn't find any ores for making flying swords. "Only found 7 you want. Sai, if we didn't ship away some 3 months ago, perhaps you would find more." Seeing Yimo only being interested in 7, Han Zixin was disappointed. It seemed these materials keep couldn't attract him either. This time, Yimo was speechless. He was very satisfied to find 4 ores he needed on Earth. This was too rare. At least he could make a defense artifact for his sister, and he could make his storage ring. He didn't expect all these to be leftovers. "Elder Han, how often do you give things to the hidden sex?" Yimo couldn't resist to ask. Han Zixin laughed. "It seems Li who told you, but these aren't secrets anyways. We usually give things to them annually. Our condition is that not only are they to help us, Grandpa. The girl beside Han Zixin spoke for the first time. Her voice was very crisp. Emo didn't think that this girl was Han Zixin's granddaughter. She was not a simple person. Han Zixin smiled. Emo is not an outsider, plus, this isn't something that can't be told. Perhaps, Emo would soon be on our side. Emo knew that Elder Han still hadn't given up on making him join the Flying Snow Squad. Although he didn't want to, but he didn't want to give up these materials. If he could pick some each year, then it would solve a large problem for him. Perhaps he could finish gathering the materials needed for Flying Sword. Thinking about this, Emo said, Elder Han, actually, I'm also decent at making weapons. I can use some weapons to trade materials with you. What do you think? Han Zixin smiled and said, Emo, you don't know the perks of the weapons from the hidden sex. That's why you say that. If you knew the worth of the weapons in the Extreme Weapons Vault, then you wouldn't say this. But if you want materials, that's easy. Just join Flying Snow Squad and I can let you pick 10 each year. Emo was moved but didn't talk. Instead, that young girl said once again, Grandpa, this way. Yen, only 10, it's fine. And before we trade things, I can still decide what to do with you. You just need to not tell them, Han Zixin immediately said. The girl hesitated and eventually didn't say anything. From these words, Emo already understood that this girl should be from the hidden sex and was Elder Han's granddaughter. However, 10 each year should be enough for him. Plus, they might not even gather 10 he needed each year. However, he didn't want to join Flying Snow Squad. It was too restricting and a waste of time. However, Emo knew it was impossible for him to get these things for free. As though seeing Yemo's hesitation, Han Zixin immediately said, You just need to be the instructor and you can move freely. You just need to help Flying Snow Squad do one thing each year. Emo hesitated and said, I can be the instructor, but I will only be teaching for 3 days each year and do one thing for Flying Snow Squad once every 2 years. And you must not use any reason to confine me. Other reason I wouldn't accept it. Okay, deal. Han Zixin revealed the smile of a cunning fox. He originally wanted to use Extreme Weapons Vault to keep Emo since it was the same as using materials. As long as Emo joined Flying Snow Squad, things would become easier. Emo knew this was Han Zixin's trap, but he had to jump in. He needed to cultivate it and didn't have much time to search for ores and spirit grass. How powerful was the workforce of a country? No matter how Emo searched, he could not compare with the power of a country. Plus, there was no harm for him. He wouldn't waste too much time being an instructor. After leaving the vault, he went to eat with Elder Han. It was already in the afternoon, and his documents were ready. It was a small blue booklet with his photo attached. It said Emo was the instructor for Special Ops Force Flying Snow Squad, and he also had a Bureau of Chinese Special Forces stamp. Emo felt this little booklet wasn't completely useless. Perhaps it would be useful in the future. They also brought with him a gun and a mobile phone. Emo took it, thinking about how he just bought a phone yesterday and now he got a new one. He shouldn't have bought it if he knew. Then, he went to the training base for Flying Snow Squad and gave some instruction. Seeing the sky was dark, Emo was scared his sister would be worried and was prepared to go to Hua Qing University. However, after the captain of the squad Zhangju fought with Emo, he was astonished and dragged Emo to go to the party of the Beijing elites. Emo was completely uninterested in such an event but couldn't reject Zhangju and the others' strong request. After all, he was still the instructor. Moreover, Emo was scared that his sister didn't want to leave Beijing. If she stayed and he didn't, it would be beneficial for her if he knew a few people in Beijing. After all, those who could come were either rich or powerful. Normal people couldn't come. For Yiling, last night was the best night of her life. Not only was her birthday smooth, she wasn't scared and knew that Emo wasn't impotent. She felt grateful to Tianhe for testing Yemo's manhood. More importantly, Emo said the Song family wouldn't come and they didn't. She was fine the next day when she woke up. Being from a large powerful family, Yiling knew that since Emo didn't kill Song Xiaochen and the Song family didn't come, it meant that they wouldn't. Despite not knowing why the Song family was so fearful of Emo, she still felt proud of him. Only she knew that Yi Mo didn't rely on the Yi family at all. He relied only on himself. Yi Ling was all too clear on what sort of family was the Song family, so how could she not be proud of such a brother? Yi Ling was prepared to go meet with Yi Mo and Yi Zifeng and then invite her friends in her dorm out for a good meal. So as soon as she got up and couldn't reach Yi Zifeng's phone, she rushed home quickly. As soon as she entered, she felt the atmosphere wasn't right. Quan Yi, how come I can't reach my brother? Is he at home? Yi Ling thought he couldn't reach Yi Zifeng last night because he shut down his mobile, but she still couldn't reach him this morning. She knew that Yi Zifeng rarely went back after her father passed away 2 years ago and usually stayed at the Yi family mansion. Of course, it was partly due to Grandpa liking him, but she didn't know what Yi Zifeng was thinking. Yi Ling rarely went back to a home that was empty and stayed most of the time at school. Occasionally, she would go back to live a few days at the Yi family mansion. However, she needed to steal things, so she had been here more frequently. Although Yi Zifeng rarely went back, his phone was always on. But today, his phone was still off. This rarely happened, so the first thing Yi Ling did when she came to the Yi family mansion was to ask for Yi Zifeng's whereabouts. Quan Yi was the caretaker of the Yi family mansion. Yi Ling needed to be going in and out of the mansion, so she intentionally got close to Quan Yi. But today, Quan Yi saw Yi Ling's face and her face quickly changed. She didn't answer Yi Ling's questions and walked away with her head down hurriedly. Yi Ling, you still dare to come back? Get inside. A vulgar voice sounded. Before Yi Ling could react, a huge hand grabbed Yi Ling by the neck and easily dragged her in. The room was full of people. Not only were the main people in the Yi family there, even the women who weren't allowed in meetings were there too. It seemed that these people were already waiting for her. If she didn't come back herself, perhaps she would be apprehended. She looked at her grandpa sitting at the top and her heart sunk. Many years ago, her second auntie interfered with her second uncle's business and was punished so severely. The things she did now were countless times more severe than what her second aunt did. No matter how much her grandpa liked her, she couldn't escape the consequences today. Yi Ling found that she looked through the entire house and almost everyone was here other than Yi Zifeng. Where did Yi Zifeng go? Yi Ling suddenly worried as her heart skipped a beat. Could Yi Zifeng be punished due to her? She forgot that she should be worried about herself, not Yi Zifeng. Yi Beirong looked at Yi Ling once and the disappointment was clear in his eyes. He didn't say anything. His health had been good, so he could survive for another 8 or 10 years. Because he liked Yi Wentian, he wanted to wait for another 10 years after Yi Zifeng was mature to see if he could give the leader position to Yi Zifeng. Out of the brothers, Yi Wenqi was too calculative and didn't have a broad view. He could only be calculative in small things. As for Yi Wenjin, he was more of an imbecile. However, Yi Zifeng was quite like his father, and this was the reason Yi Beirong didn't give the leader position to Yi Wenqi. Last time, he even tried to let Yi Zifeng enter the family meeting. Although his words weren't allowed, his performance was well. He thought of everything but just didn't expect Yi Ling to do something so treacherous. She actually stole 2 of the Feng Shui Dragon Balls and gave it to their opponent, the Song family. If Yi Beirong could let this go easily, then there would be no point for the existence of the Yi family. Yi Beirong scanned the tens of people below and remained silent for a while before saying, "There are 2 things I want to announce in this meeting. The first thing is, from today, the leader of the family will be Yi Wenqi. 3 days later, we will do the exchange. The second thing is Yi Ling's treacherous acts will be dealt with by Yi Wenqi." Then, Yi Beirong stood up from the leader chair and sighed. He didn't sit on another chair and instead walked out of the room. Yi Ling's heart was cold. It seemed her grandpa wouldn't let her go. If her grandpa punished her, she would still have some chance. But if it was her big uncle, then she wouldn't even know what would wait for her. Plus, her grandpa wasn't here. Yi Ling suddenly looked at Yi Lu, who was behind her 4th uncle, and was immediately shocked. She was caught, but why was Yi Lu fine? Yi Lu did more things than her but just didn't steal the Dragon Balls. Plus, it was Yi Lu who introduced her to Gu Luo. And Gu Luo said Yi Lu was working for him from a long time ago. Since the Yi family could find out she stole the Dragon Balls, how could they not know what Yi Lu did? Yi Ling's heart couldn't help but to sink. She had experienced some things and was no longer the naive child she once was. She thought about her suspicion about her father's death as well as the things she did. Could her big uncle not tell she was intentionally getting close to them? They took this long to know she stole the Dragon Balls? And was sure she took it? Did her big uncle's men not care all this time she'd been inside the mansion? Yiling suddenly thought of a scary truth. It was that right from the beginning her big uncle and fourth uncle knew what she was doing, but they just let her be. She was in trouble, but Yilu was free instead. So perhaps they purposely got Yilu to get close to her. Yiling was shivering at her thought. Why did her big uncle do this? What good was there for him? Was it just to kill her and her brother? The more she thought, the more she felt the chances were high. How old was she? She hadn't even graduated. Her big uncle and them were cunning. She could only lose in a wisdom battle with them. Her brother Yemo was kicked out by them because of his bodily issues. Yiling couldn't understand why her big uncle and fourth uncle would do this and try to eradicate their line. But everything else Yiling understood. If Yiling knew that Grandpa was planning for Yi Zifeng to be the leader of the family 10 years later, she would understand. Zhangju was not as famous in Beijing as Du Tao. When Yemo, Zhangju, Du Tao and Li Hu walked in, most people only greeted Du Tao since he was the vice head of the National Security Bureau. However, Du Tao wasn't feeling full of himself at all because only he understood that other than Li Hu, Yemo and Zhangju's identity were higher than his. Zhangju didn't like this sort of scene, but he didn't really understand Yemo's personality, and that's why he pulled him here. Brother Zhang, your arrival really surprised me. A youth not yet in his 30s arrived. It seemed that not everyone didn't recognize Zhangju. This youth speaking obviously knew Zhangju and his identity. Zhangju smiled and turned to Yemo and said, "This is the young master of the Li family, Li Choyang. He's quite famous in Beijing, haha." Li Choyang looked curiously at Yemo. He knew Du Tao was still a subordinate of Zhangju. What Li Choyang didn't expect was that Zhangju actually introduced him to the youth beside him, whom he didn't know. This youth dressed very ordinarily, or he was perhaps even poorly dressed. Who was this person? When Zhangju introduced him, he was obviously very respectful. Other than that old man Han Zixin, who else could let Zhangju be so respectful to? And Du Tao and Zhangju were both half a step behind him. Although there was just that slight distance, it was enough for Li Choyang to judge Yemo's status. He had understood that Yemo was no ordinary person and had a higher status than Zhangju at least. Li Choyang's heart moved. He wouldn't judge by appearances and quickly walked up to Yemo and extended his hand. "I'm Li Choyang, Zhangju's loyal supporter and his friend." Yemo smiled and shook hands with him. "I'm Yemo. I just got to know Zhangju today." Li Choyang's mouth spasmed. He was all too clear on Zhangju's arrogance. He would never believe Zhangju would be so respectful to someone whom he just met. But Yemo didn't seem to be lying. Yemo, this name seemed to be familiar, the same name as the trash who was kicked out of the Yi family. "Haha. Let's not stand here. Mr. Ji Beichin, who just came back from Taiwan, will hold a charity auction. Then there will be a ball. Let's sit down and have a chat. Later at the auction, you can see if you have anything you want." Ji Beichin is a famous antiques collector. It's said he prepares a lot of good things whenever he comes back. Li Choyang smiled and said, "Okay. I've heard of Ji Beichin's name for a long time. Although I don't have much money, I still want to see his collection." Zhangju immediately agreed. "Sorry." A person suddenly bumped into Yemo and apologized right away. However, when the person looked at Yemo, that person voiced out, "Hey, it's you." Yemo saw that he had actually seen the person who bumped into him before. She was the Tan Fei who was going to give him an album when he got off the plane yesterday. He didn't expect to see her at this upper-class social night, but since she was that famous, she did seem to have the ability to come. "Fei Fei, after tonight's auction, there's a ball. I'll dance with you later." A young man followed closely. Tan Fei no longer had the mood to think how someone as poor as Yemo could come in here, and turned to look at the man and said, "Sorry, young Master E. My leg is injured." Yemo scanned with his spirit sense. Tan Fei's leg was fine. It seemed that she just wanted to reject this young Master E, and couldn't help but to smile thinking that women could always find an excuse. However, his smile was caught by the young Master Yi. A person dressing so poorly dared to laugh at him, and it was obviously because Tan Fei rejected him. What are you laughing at? You bumped into Fei Fei and hurt her leg. If you laugh again, I'll tear your mouth. This youth saw Yi Mo's smile and was angered by embarrassment. Hearing these words, Zhang Ju's face sunk but didn't rage. This young Master Yi in front of him was from the Song family and was the son of Song Qifeng, someone who had great power. He was also in the Xiao generation. However, because a feng shui master said that he would be able to achieve something great once he took the Xiao away from his name, he changed it Song Yi. Although he wasn't afraid of Song Yi, but getting on bad terms with Song Yi was the same as getting on bad terms with the Song family. Li Chuoyang's mouth smiled. He just got to know Yi Mo, so of course he wouldn't stand up for him. Moreover, Song Yi's status was no lower than his, perhaps even a little higher. Although his Li family was one of the 5 great families of Beijing, there were too many people in the Li family, and he was only a decent member. He was still a little low compared to a core member such as Song Yi. Yi Mo frowned. Who was this young Master Yi? He was so cocky. However, Tan Fei had reacted and quickly said, "This isn't his fault. I accidentally bumped into him. Fei Fei, just stand aside and dance with me later. If I say it's his fault, it is his fault." Then Song Yi walked up with cruelty. Zhang Ju finally couldn't resist anymore and was going to argue with Song Yi, but Yi Mo stopped him. "You're called Song Yi? From the Song family?" Yi Mo looked at Song Yi and coldly said, "It's too late to know I'm from the Song family. Chuoyang, this guy's not related to you, right? Don't blame me for not considering you." Song Yi casually looked at Li Chuoyang. Slap, 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 slap. Before Song Yi even finished his words, Yi Mo had slapped him 4 times on the face already. Song Yi was slapped meters away and crumbled to the ground. Teeth flew out as his mouth was covered in blood. After the initial shock, he immediately pointed his finger at Yi Mo crazily and stammeringly said, "You don't want to live. You dare to hit me." Everyone around was shocked. Song Yi's identity? Who didn't know? This poor-looking youth dared to break so many of his teeth and bruise his face. Li Chuoyang was shocked, although he knew that Yi Mo's status was quite high. But who dared to easily beat up Song Yi like this? Of course, it was only unless he didn't know who Song Yi was. Tan Fei was shocked and was at a loss for words. She could only think that it was over. If she knew this would happen, she should have danced with Song Yi. But now people may die. Although Zhang Ju was shocked, he was still calm. Although the Song family was powerful, he was the captain of Flying Snow Squad, so he didn't need to be afraid of them. At this moment, Yi Mo slowly said, "So what if I beat up people from the Song family?" Then, he walked up and kicked Song Yi on the leg, making a cracking sound. He actually broke Song Yi's leg in front of so many people after knowing who Song Yi was. Everyone around him looked at him as though he was crazy. "You?" Song Yi didn't faint from the pain, but almost fainted due to anger. At this moment, 2 men quickly rushed in front of Song Yi and wiped the blood from his mouth. One of the men stared coldly at Yi Mo. "You're very bold. I hope you will still be so calm and bold later." Then he picked up the phone. Yi Mo laughed. "Even if Song Qiming is standing in front of my face, I'm still so calm." "You are Yi Mo?" At this moment, the other person from the Song family finally recognized Yi Mo, and his face immediately changed. "Yi Mo?" The other man calling repeated this name and actually put down the phone. Yi Mo sneered. "Good, your dog eyes aren't blind. I was just trying to find a reason to go to the Song family, but I didn't expect the wild seeds of Song family to come to me. In that case, don't blame me." The people around were dumbfounded to hear such insults in the face of the Song family. But people were more shocked afterwards. When Song Yi heard the person in front was Yi Mo, his eyes were full of fear. He didn't even care about the pain on his leg. He sat up and said to Yi Mo, "Young Master Mo, sorry, I didn't know it was you. Go, let's go." The 2 men who were going to look for trouble with Yi Mo weren't surprised at all at Song Yi's apology after knowing that it was Yi Mo. After Song Yi apologized, they carried Song Yi and turned to leave. They didn't leave any tough words behind and didn't even continue the call. Zhang Ju's eyes showed contemplation, but soon he understood. Yi Mo must have came from the hidden sects Otherwise, Song Yi wouldn't be so cowardly. Only Du Tao guessed something. He guessed that the Song family was scared Yimo would go on a rampage at the Song family disregarding the consequences. The most shocked were the people around. They were all guessing who Yimo was. He beat Song Yi like that, but Song Yi still had to apologize. That was too freaking awesome. Tan Fei looked at Yimo in disbelief. Yimo was still dressed like before, although he looked clean, but the clothes on him wouldn't be worth more than 200. His pockets seemed very full and he looked very poor. However, just who was he? Who was Song Yi? He was the young master of the Song family. His reputation was no better than Song Shaoan before. Tan Fei knew that quite well, and even if she wanted to find someone to protect her, there was no one who would not fear Song Yi. But this young man in front her beat up Song Yi, and Song Yi still had to apologize. The way Tan Fei looked at Yimo also became more respectful. Although she was a popular songstress, she was nothing in front of these big family young masters. Brother Yi, this way please. Would you be interested in antiques? If you are, tonight, Mr. Ji Beiqing won't disappoint you. Li Chuyang didn't mention what happened just then at all, but the hospitality on his face was more vivid. He was thinking who Yimo was, but he knew now was not the time to ask. Tan Fei looked at Yimo with complicated and apologetic eyes. Yimo, thank you for just then. I'm really sorry. I'm Tan Fei. Will I have the honor of knowing you? It's nothing big, don't worry. And I have problems with the Song family. Even if they don't come for me, I will go for them. I'm Yimo. We already know each other anyways, so no need for that formality. Yimo waved his hand and said, if he really did see someone from the Song family, he would definitely go look for trouble. He wanted to know what Song Qiming's bottom line was. Fei Fei, I've been looking for you a long time. Another sweet-looking girl walked over and grabbed Tan Fei's hand. Come. Xiao Yu and Aunt Yun are here. Then, this girl didn't even give Tan Fei the chance to reply and dragged her away. Tan Fei turned around and gave Yimo another apologetic smile. If you have time, I wish to invite you to dinner. Yimo didn't have his attention on Tan Fei at the moment and was listening to the conversation between the two men in the distance. They would have never thought that Yimo could still hear their words at such distance. Did you see? That person who beat up Song Yi is called Yimo. Could he be that Yimo from the Yi family? No way, Yi family's Yimo is a garbage. How can he be here and teach Song Yi a lesson? By the way, no one from the Yi family seemed to be here tonight. There's definitely no one from the Yi family out tonight. What? You know why? I asked out Yi Ling last night. She said that there was something in his family today and couldn't come out. For a big family like theirs, even someone like Yi Ling wouldn't come out. That must mean something big is happening. Not necessarily. How could a family as big as the Yi family have big problems? But these things aren't something that we can care about. Did you see Tan Fei just then? She's indeed pretty. No wonder Song Yi was interested. The auction is about to start. Mr. Ji Beiqing is here. Someone called out and interrupted Yimo's focus. Yimo, however, felt this unknown uneasiness in his heart. He frowned and immediately realized it was because he heard those words and thought about Yi Ling. He hadn't seen Yi Ling this entire day. She must be worried after putting their arrangement on hold for so long. Thinking about this, Yimo could no longer stay and immediately said, I have something urgent. I need to go. We'll talk next time. Zhang Ju didn't stop Yimo this time because Yimo just beat Song Yi very hard. Even if he was from the ancient martial arts sects, he needed to make some arrangements in case the Song family ambushes him. He, Du Tao, Li Hu, Li Chuang and some other people went with him to the door. Yoemo took a train to Hua University. He didn't wait outside the female dorms this time and went to Yi Ling's dorm with invisibility. Yimo's spirit sense saw that Yi Ling wasn't inside, but he still knocked. The person who opened the door was Tian He. When she saw it was Yimo, her face was full of joy, but when she thought about what happened last night, her face blushed a little. Yi Ling is not here? Do you know where she went? Yimo wasn't in the mood to think about other things and just asked for Yi Ling's whereabouts. You are Yi Ling's boyfriend, so isn't she living with you? And how did you get in? Lu Li also came to the door. Yeah, Yiling left in the morning and hasn't been back. We thought you guys were enjoying your private time that you forgot about inviting us to dinner, Tianhe said. Emo suddenly had a bad feeling and urgently asked, which one of you have Yiling's number? Yiling's boyfriend didn't have her number, although they were speechless, but seeing Yemo's desperate expression, Tianhe still gave it to him. Thanks. Emo got Yiling's number. Then he said one word and disappeared. He runs really fast. Did he have an argument with Yiling? Dan walked up and inquired. Tianhe shook her head. I don't think so. Look at how worried Yiling was for him. How could she bear to argue with such a handsome boyfriend? If I have such a boyfriend, I would do anything he asks. There's no way I would argue with him. Okay. Tianhe, I'm sure you're not a virgin anymore. Tell me the truth. Who slept with you? Dan giggled and said. Tianhe sighed. Sigh, I also don't want it, but I can't find someone like Yiling's boyfriend. If there is, I'm willing to chase him. PFT. Yiling just said last night that guy was her brother? Dan had a face of disbelief. Yeah, but you need to make me believe it. If I have a boyfriend I love, I'll also call him brother. Is that not okay? Tianhe said. Emo called Yiling as soon as he got her number, but it said her phone was unavailable. Yiling knew he was at Beijing and even wanted to ask Yi Zifeng out today. There was no way her phone would be shut. Her dorm mate said she was out in the morning, so how could there be no news of her till now? And even her phone was shut? Did something happen? The first thing Emo thought of was those two people saying something happened at the Yi family. Did something happen to Yiling? Although Emo wasn't too sure of those bullshit family laws, but he still knew a bit. If people knew that Yiling stole the Dragon Balls, then there was no way she could escape. Thinking about Yiling, Yemo's heart was burning with worry. He even regretted staying in the training base for the whole day. He should have taken the money and left in the morning. Yemo called a taxi and made the taxi go to the Yi family mansion as fast as he could. At the door, the driver stopped because cars were not allowed ahead. Yemo got off and with an invisibility magic, he darted like a hurricane through the long shady road into the mansion. All of these only took half a minute for Yemo. Even a car would take a minute for this. There were still 2 guards at the door. If he didn't see Yiling's situation, he would go in with the invisibility magic. But at the door of the inner front yard, he had already scanned Yiling's state. His spirit sense could reach nearly 80 meters now. The moment he saw Yiling, his fury erupted. Yiling's head sagged down with her hair in a mess and was hung up at the corner of the yard inside a mosque. Her body was bloodied. It was obviously whiplashes, and what was left to cover her were tattered clothes. In just a day's time, she was tortured to this state. Bam! Yemo kicked the door, flying many meters away. Before the 2 guards could react, they were already killed, spitting blood on the ground. Yemo went into the mosque with his fastest speed and cut off the rope with a wind blade. Yiling dropped into his arms. Yemo felt some relief as she hadn't died yet but just fainted. It was probably because she hadn't eaten at all and was beaten heavily. If he came an hour or 2 late, it would be very hard to say if she would still be alive. Yemo's cultivation chi started running as he immediately inserted it into Yiling's body. Yiling had received internal injuries, but under Yemo's treatment, her injuries gradually disappeared. After 10 more minutes, she woke up and looked at the person in front of her. It was actually Yemo. She was shocked and immediately asked, "Brother, why did you come? This has nothing to do with you. Why did they capture you?" Yemo affectionately wiped the blood from Yiling's head and said, "Sorry, Yiling. I came late. I will take you and leave later, but I will first avenge you. I'll wash you first. Close your eyes." Yiling moaned and found that there was not a single part of her clothes or skin that was all right. Yemo was her brother and she didn't think otherwise. She just felt there was a warm sense in her body that prevented her from feeling pain and instead made her comfortable. She didn't know why Yemo was cleaning her up. Although she was his sister and her clothes were just tattered, she was still embarrassed. Yemo looked at the lashes on her body. There were bruises everywhere, and a fit of fury burned inside him. He used a few water ball magic and cleaned Yiling. At the same time, with his chi, those scars and bruises quickly disappeared. 10 minutes later, there was already a ruckus outside. Emo then took off his shirt and put it on Yi Ling. Yi Ling opened her eyes and looked at her wounds. They had actually disappeared. She looked at Emo in shock. "Brother, what medicine did you use? How come I don't feel any pain at all, and there are no marks on my body anymore? It's really magical, but I'm a little hungry." Emo caressed Yi Ling's hair. "Your brother is a doctor and has opened up a clinic. This time, leave Beijing with me. Okay?" Yi Ling obediently nodded. At this moment, she felt calm and happy in her brother's arms without a single bit of worry. A faint serenity made her feel comfortable. If she could stay with her brother, she would never stay in this horrific Yi family again. She just didn't know what was happening to Yi Zifeng. "Brother, you took off your clothes and gave it to me. What about you? I didn't think you would have such a sturdy build when you look so feeble and scholarly." Yi Ling subconsciously touched Yi Mo's sturdy arms and complimented. Just when Yi Mo wanted to say something, there was more and more people outside. It seemed that the Yi family people had come. Yi Mo had already scanned 20 to 30 armed guards. Yi Ling, however, didn't notice them yet. She suddenly reached her hand into one of Yi Mo's pockets and said once again, "Brother, why do you have so many stones on you?" There are some in your pants pocket too." Yi Mo just gave his top to Yi Ling, and she was still in his arms now, so she casually felt the oars in the pockets of his pants. "We'll talk about this later." Yi Mo took down the rope that tied Yi Ling before and made Yi Ling get on his back before tying her once again. After which, he kicked on the mosque's door. The sturdy door was kicked into pieces. Without any report from the outer yard, someone reached the inner yard and kicked 2 guards to death. Of course, Yi Beirong knew of such major thing, but what made him more angry was that as soon as he came, he saw Yi Mo break the mosque door. Not only was he angry at the guard's uselessness, but he was also angry at Yi Mo for breaking the big door. "Capture him immediately and bring him inside. The rest of you should leave immediately. All of the Yi family members come to the meeting lounge immediately." Yi Beirong almost ordered to kill Yi Mo and Yi Ling under such rage, but he still had his senses. Someone who was so cocky in the Yi family mansion must be killed, but before they lose their lives, he still needed to ask some things. As such, he immediately held a meeting. In his eyes, it wouldn't take long at all for all these people to capture a youth with Yi Ling on his back. He didn't need to worry at all. He had only seen Yi Mo a few times, and now, Yi Mo changed a lot so he didn't recognize him. Yi Mo sneered. He dared to charge into Sai-Na Peninsula and face the Nanqing army numbering thousands, so how could he worry about 20 to 30 guards? Yi Ling was already worried. She wanted Yi Mo to leave first, but she knew that with so many people surrounding them, it was impractical for Yi Mo to escape. She could only sigh while thinking about their current situation. If she was going to die, she might as well die with Yi Mo. However, the following scene almost made her doubt her eyes. Yi Mo almost flew and charged into those 20 guards. Yi Ling could only see shadows of Yi Mo's fists and kicks as a fit thuds echoed out. Yi Ling didn't think that Yi Mo would actually be so strong. He was carrying her, yet he still easily beat up 20 to 30 guards. Thinking about how he helped her heal so fast and that warm feeling in her body, no matter how dumb she was, she knew that Yi Mo was no longer the Yi Mo she knew. She thought about last night. Yi Mo easily killed people and took her away from that entertainment place. Until now, the Song family still didn't dare to hunt them. Now, it seemed that the Song family knew her brother was strong and didn't dare to come. She didn't think Yi Mo would become this strong. This wasn't something she could imagine. Her brother was so excellent. But that Ning Qingxue still dared to revoke the marriage. She must be blind. If Yi Mo wasn't her biological brother, then perhaps even she would fall in love with him. Thinking about this, Yi Ling cursed herself for thinking too much, but it really felt comfortable on her brother's back. Perhaps she was too tired and gradually fell asleep. "You are very strong, but even so, don't think about leaving this mansion today." A plain voice sounded after Yi Mo beat up tens of people. Yi Mo looked at the person talking to him. That person was less than 40 and had a waxy face. He had a very bizarre styled long sword. The blade wasn't long, but it was shining black which didn't match its owner's waxy yellow face. This person should be a lot stronger than Wuxia. Although he was not as strong as Wu Chang, he should be on the same level as Zhang Ju. Emo didn't expect there to be such a master at the Yi family mansion. According to his experience, this person was a tertiary stage yellow-level martial artist. If Emo was still stage 2 Qi gathering, then he wouldn't even think before leaving. He wouldn't be able to leave unscathed even by himself, much less with Yi Ling on his back. But now he was at the stage 3 Qi gathering. Wu Chang couldn't even last 20 moves from him, and this guy was weaker than Wu Chang. Emo was still wondering whether or not to kill him when this man's long sword howled towards his waist. As that man struck, there wasn't any hesitation, as though he wanted to cut Emo in half. Although it was just one swing, what came into his eyes were tens of blades. Even Hu Qiu's whip prowess was a lot lesser than this man's sword skills. The speed and transformations on this swing was indeed a rare scene. To be this good at the sword, one not only needed to practice rare techniques, but they also need a certain amount of inner qi. Emo knew that the sword wasn't going to cut his waist but rather his legs. That man probably saw him attack, so he judged that Emo would be able to dodge this swing. Then, his killing blow would be a ground-sweeping cut. Before the swing finished, he focused all his power into his lower body and also started to squat. Emo saw this subtle change. No matter where he landed, as long as he was within 10 meters radius, he would lose his legs. Of course, if he couldn't even dodge the first swing, he would lose his waist. It seemed that he was pretty faithful in Emo dodging the first swing and then cutting off his legs with the second swing. Emo sneered. There really was no challenge in fighting someone a few calibers lower than him. Each move of the opponent was in his prediction. Despite having Yi Ling on his back, Emo twisted his waist slightly and the tens of blade shadows were dodged. Of course, as soon as this man saw Emo dodged his swing, he was happy instead. His blade didn't stop for a moment before switching to an arc swing from the ground. Under the dim yellow light, this swing was like mercury spill that covered a 7-meter radius. He sneered. No matter how strong Emo was, as long as he landed, he could cut off Emo's legs. Emo was able to not land. Even if he carried Yi Ling, he was able to use his wind-controlling art and glide to more than 10 meters out before landing. As such, the moment when his foot landed, the silver on the ground disappeared, leaving a long sword that was stepped under his foot. The man's sneering face froze. He never had expected that someone could break his move using such unimaginable ways. Under shock, the man immediately reacted. The sword in his hand twisted in an attempt to pull the sword from under Emo's foot. Emo felt an intriguingly strong force from under his foot. Just when he wanted to use more force, the sword had broken into 2 segments. The man held the half of the sword and, without hesitation, the long sword turned into a glimmer that struck towards Emo's stomach. Meanwhile, he followed behind the hilt of the sword as his 2 hands turned into shadows attacking towards Emo's chest. Emo didn't expect this person to be so good at long sword and fists. As the sword was about to hit Emo's stomach, he raised his foot and kicked the sword flying. Then, with a single fist, he punched the man's fist shadows. Bang! Bang! The clash of fists and palms echoed out. Crack! Emo didn't hold back at all. He used his fastest speed and sealed the man's fist shadows while twisting both of the man's wrists until they were broken. The man took a few steps back and his waxy yellow face became pale. The pain on his face could not cover his shock. Although he was a tertiary stage yellow-level martial artist, not even those at the peak of the yellow level could beat him. However, this youth who was much smaller than him easily broke through his killing move and sealed all of his fist shadows and then broke his wrists. Ever since he graduated, it was his first time meeting someone so strong. How come he hadn't heard of this man in the hidden sects? He couldn't even last 10 moves before he was gruesomely defeated. Emo bleakly looked at the man. Did you want to cut one or both of my legs off just then? Emo wasn't sure because the man was so proficient with that move. If Emo failed to step on that blade, then that man could have done whatever he wished on Emo's legs. I just wanted to cut your left leg. Beads of sweat dripped from the man's pale face. Very well, I'll return the favor. Then, Emo kicked the other half of the sword, and it turned into a white ray that was faster than when the man swung his sword at Emo. A faint sound reverberated. When the man realized what had happened, his left leg was severed. Emo had disappeared in front of him. He looked at the place where Emo disappeared in terror until blood gushed out from his wound before he thought about stopping the bleeding. That sword was a casual throw, yet it still cut his legs clean like tofu. Who was he? Who the hell was he? How could he be so horrifying and strong? If this person wanted to annihilate the Yi family, even if he had a few more helpers, they would still be no match for him. How could he meet such a master in an urban city? The man couldn't help but to start shaking. Master, what's wrong? A youth in his 20s hurriedly came and helped the wobbly man up. The man saw the youth come and gasped a sigh of relief before immediately saying, "My wrists are broken. Immediately grab my severed leg and carry me away from this place as far as possible. Quick, now." 20 to 30 people plus Huang Yu. How come they're still not here yet? Wenjin, go have a look. Yi Beirong had calmed down now. No matter who the youth was, he would still kill him after asking him some things. The Yi family wasn't some place people could come and go. "No need, I've come." A cold voice sounded at the door. Yi Beirong suddenly stood up and looked at Emo in disbelief. Emo was obviously not captured. After a long while, he reacted, "How did you come in? What happened to Huang Yu and the others? Didn't you tell me to come in? Are you talking about that yellow-faced long-sword wielder? I cut off his leg and broke his wrists. He's been rescued away now." Emo stared coldly at Yi Beirong before saying, "What?" Yi Beirong's head buzzed. Other people didn't know Huang Ye's power, but he was all too clear. This man said he cut off Huang Yu's leg, so how strong must he be? And why does he look a little familiar? Of course, Yi Long also knew how strong Huang Yu was. Now that Emo said this, he didn't believe it. But soon, people came in and reported to him what happened outside. The way Yi Long looked at Emo immediately changed. Someone who could chop off Huang Yu's leg was definitely from the hidden sections. Yi Beirong also heard the report and showed a serious face. He immediately said in a low voice, "Report it immediately. Brother, why did you come back here?" Yi Ling looked at this hall in fear. She was sentenced to death here in the morning and must be whipped for 3 days. As such, as soon as she come to this house, she felt a natural fear. "Who are you? How dare you be so cocky? Don't you know this is the Yi family? Yi Ling, how dare you bring outsiders to ravage here?" Yi Weiqi saw his father's dissatisfaction and called out. Emo plainly glanced at Yi Wenqi. "Are you deaf? Didn't you hear Yi Ling call me brother? I'm Emo, but I'm not a member of this family anymore." Of course, Emo would never admit he was from the Yi family. Regardless of whether Yi Wentian was his biological father in this world, he still wasn't from the Yi family. "You are Emo?" Yi Long stood up and looked at Emo in shock. He finally understood why Emo could still be fine after killing Song Shaowen. With his ability to cut off Huang Yu's leg, it was way too easy for him to kill a few Song family people and escape. It wasn't that the Song family didn't want to retaliate, but they didn't dare. By the looks of it, their intel was far inferior than the Song family. If Yi Long could understand this, of course Yi Beirong could too. He didn't expect Emo to grow to this state. Yi Beirong calmed down once again and suppressed the shock in his heart. He sat down and looked at Emo. "Since you are Emo and are a member of the Yi family, why did you break the mosque's door?" "Dad, I really tested Yemo's blood in the hospital. He's not from the Yi family." At this moment, Yi Wenqi spoke. "Shut up," Yi Beirong reproached. Emo sneered. "Of course I'm not from the Yi family. I don't need you to remind me. I never thought myself as a member of this family. The reason I still haven't left today is to collect some debts. Who hit Yi Ling yesterday? All of you stand out. Otherwise, don't blame me for killing you all. Don't doubt my words. Emo, it's very rare to be able to practice martial arts to this degree. I don't know what fortune you had, but Yi Ling stole the Yi family's Feng Shui Dragon Balls. She's unforgivable." Although Yi Beirong calmed down on the surface, he still couldn't calm down inside. He didn't expect Yemo's power to reach this state. If he came back to the Yi family, then the Song family's cockiness will cease. However, he couldn't just ask for Emo to come back. He could only do that through Yi Ling. He now no longer had the wish to punish Yi Ling. Plus, with Yimo's power, it would be a joke trying to punish Yi Ling seeing Yi Mo sneer. Yi Beirong continued, "Even if you're strong, can you stop Flying Eagle? I've already reported not only will there be people from Flying Eagle Squad coming, but there will also be 3 people coming from Flying Snow Squad. If you are willing to admit your mistakes, I won't blame you." Yi Mo acted as though he didn't hear it. Of course, he knew about Flying Eagle. He was already the instructor for Flying Snow Squad, so how could he not know about Flying Eagle? In China's 9 Flying Special Ops Forces, Flying Eagle Squad was ranked 3rd. Seeing Yi Mo stay silent, Yi Beirong thought Yi Mo felt threatened. Just when he wanted to continue, Yi Mo suddenly took 2 balls from his pocket. "You said that Yi Ling is unforgivable for taking these 2 Dragon Balls? And you're going to beat her to death. How are the Dragon Balls in your hands?" Yi Wenjin knew that the things were in the Song family's hands, but now that Yi Mo had them, he couldn't stop himself from exclaiming. But immediately, he continued, "Is stealing the Dragon Balls forgivable? This is a treacherous act against the Yi family." "Very well." Yi Mo gathered Cultivation Chi on his hand and the 2 Dragon Balls were crushed to powder. After doing so, Yi Mo looked at Yi Wenjin and said, "I've crushed both of them. What sin are you going to sentence me?" Everyone in the Yi family was shocked, although the 2 Dragon Balls were stolen away, but the Yi family would eventually get it back through negotiation. At most, they would lose some interest, but now Yi Mo just crushed it. Yi Beirong looked at the crushed Dragon Balls in shock, and couldn't say a word for a long time. Other than fury, he felt shock. How dare Yi Mo act in such a way? "You?" Yi Beirong pointed at Yi Mo. He was so angry that he couldn't say a thing. Yi Long and Yi Wenqi felt more shock than fear. They knew how hard the Dragon Balls were. Even if they used a hammer, they would need a lot of strength to shatter it. However, Yi Mo just rubbed it with his hands and it was powderized. Just what sort of strength was this? Yi Ling couldn't bear the scene and whispered in Yi Mo's ear, "Brother, Grandpa has been quite nice to me. Don't make him too angry." Yi Mo sneered. "Is beating you to death being nice to you? I don't think you need this kind of nice. I will count to 3, whoever hit Yi Ling stand up or I won't hold back. And, whoever grabbed Yi Ling by the neck and left the 2 marks, speak." Looking at the extremely cocky Yi Mo, Yi Beirong was shaking with anger. He was originally planning for Yi Mo to return to the Yi family, but by the looks of it, he might as well let the Flying Eagle members kill Yi Mo. "I grab her neck, so what?" A middle-aged man said angrily to Yi Mo. He was called Yi Wenkai, a nephew of Yi Beirong. Yi Mo turned to look at that man and blandly asked, "Oh, which hand did you use?" "What? I used my left hand. What can you do to me?" Yi Wenkai was not bad in martial arts and he couldn't stand Yi Mo's arrogance. "Nothing. I will take your left hand." Then Yi Mo casually swiped through air. A blood ray shot out from Yi Wenkai's left shoulder, and his left hand along with his entire arm reaching to the shoulder was cleanly sliced by some invisible sword. The people in the room were in extreme fear once again. Although Yi Mo said he chopped off Huang Ye's leg, many of them didn't know how strong Huang Yu was, and they didn't see it for themselves. Now that they saw Yi Mo sever Yi Wenkai's hand without moving, they finally realized how fearsome Yi Mo was. Yi Beirong knew Yi Mo was very strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to beat Huang Yu. However, casually cutting off Yi Wenqi's arm without moving, this was far beyond his comprehension. He stared in shock at Yi Mo's hand and forgot the fact that Yi Mo broke the Dragon Balls. He had already tried to overestimate Yi Mo, but he realized now that he still underestimated him a lot. He was guessing what projectile Yi Mo used. Yi Wenkai had been carried out and Yi Mo didn't seem to notice it. On the other hand, Yi Ling was shocked. She didn't expect Yi Mo to cut off her uncle's arm in front of so many people. A while ago when Yi Mo cut off Huang Yu's leg, she was asleep, so she didn't know Yi Mo's fierceness. "Bring out the people who hit Yi Ling and I'll pretend nothing happened and leave. If you don't, then don't blame me. Yi Wenqi, slap yourself 30 times. If you still haven't moved before I go, you will regret it." Of course, Yi Mo wasn't going to let go of the main culprit for Yi Ling's apprehension. However, he couldn't just kill him now. He would think about it before he left. Just at this moment, Another person came and bowed to Yi Beirong before saying, "The people from Nanqing are here. Do you want them to come in?" Yi Beirong seemed to suddenly woke up and quickly said, "Quick, quick, let them come in. Nanqing's people just came yesterday." Originally, they wanted to cooperate with Yi Beirong, but because the Yi family's Dragon Balls disappeared, they were arranged to the hotel. Just then when Yi Mo came, Yi Beirong asked for them. Yi Beirong wanted to use them against Yi Mo. He thought that no matter how strong Yi Mo was, he wouldn't be able to do much to Nanqing. Yi Beirong looked at Yi Mo and said, "Yi Mo, Yi Ling made mistakes, so according to ancestral rules, we must hang her up and whip her for 3 days. You are indeed strong, much stronger than I expected. No wonder the Song family didn't dare to touch you, but no matter how strong you are, you can't be stronger than Nanqing. To be honest, Nanqing wanted to ask me to deal with you, but I rejected. If Nanqing and us attacked you together, do you think you have any chances of winning? Plus, your acts are criminal. I believe there will be a hunt for you tomorrow." Yi Mo sneered. He didn't even bother with Yi Beirong. If it wasn't the Yi family people, he would have killed them long ago and finished the problem once and for all. However, if he killed all the Yi family people, first Yi Ling wouldn't allow it, second, he might come into conflict with Han Zixin. That didn't matter much, but the key thing was, his power was still low, and he depended on Han Zixin for resources. San Kai satisfactorily walked into the Yi family mansion. When he came yesterday, the Yi family tried to position themselves higher by dumping him in the hotel, but now they still had to ask for him to come back. San Kai just saw Yi Mo and his face immediately changed. He didn't bother with the Yi family people near him and walked in front of Yi Mo while respectfully saying, "Brother Yi, I didn't expect to see you here. He couldn't even finish a sentence. He was so scared that he couldn't say the rest of his words. He didn't think that he would meet Yi Mo while coming to negotiate a business deal with the Yi family. "Fuck off, I don't want to see you here." Yi Mo was very angry now, and the Nanqing people had even come to piss him off. As such, he didn't have that much of a good attitude. Yi Beirong could no longer stay calm anymore. He looked at the Nanqing representative who ran away with one sentence, and his heart immediately dropped cold. Yi Mo's power was so strong that it made his back cold. Even Nanqing people didn't dare to breathe loudly in front of Yi Mo. Yi Beirong, however, hadn't lost all his hope yet. But contrary to his expectations, before the Flying Eagle squad members moved, the 3 Flying Snow squad members saw Yi Mo and came to salute him. As a response, Yi Mo only nodded towards them. Although Yi Mo was the instructor, he knew he probably didn't have the authority to tell them what to do, so he didn't bother to tell these people to go back. Yi Beirong sunk into an ice cave. Who was Yi Mo? He was good on both sides. As though seeing the atmosphere was wrong, the leading Flying Snow squad member said, "We'll go have a look outside first." Then, the 20 or so members also went out. A few moments later, only the Yi family people remained in the house. Yi Wenqi also knew things were not right. Yi Mo's identity was just too great. Bring the people who hit Yi Ling. Yi Beirong seemed to suddenly aged a lot. He didn't expect that the person abandoned by the Yi family could force the Yi family to such an extent. Yi Mo, a person who killed the Song family leader's son but still couldn't be killed by the Song family, was actually kicked out by the Yi family. Since Song Qiming could endure, so could he, Yi Beirong. In addition, Yi Mo was named Yi. Yi Ling looked at the 2 people who whipped her whip each other under Yi Mo's order and couldn't bear to look. She looked at Yi Mo and seemed to want to say something. Yi Mo knew what she thought and waved his hand. He knew that these 2 people only hit Yi Ling under Yi Wenqi's order, but their harsh whipping made Yi Mo have killing intent. "Grandpa, where did my second brother go?" Yi Ling looked at the old-looking Yi Beirong and asked. "I sent him to England." Yi Beirong sighed. "Brother, let's go. I don't want to stay here anymore." Yi Ling was scared Yi Mo was going to kill her big uncle. No matter what, that was still her big uncle. If Yi Mo did that, what would Grandpa do? Although she suspected her father's death to be related to her big uncle. But that was just a suspicion. Of course, Yi Mo knew what Yi Ling was thinking. Yi Ling was scared he would massacre the Yi family. Yi Mo wouldn't be so stupid. Even if Yi Ling had no feelings for the Yi family, he still couldn't kill people now, much less when she did have sentiments for them. Even if he were to kill, he would have to do it in secret. That way, even if everyone were to know his actions, none of them would have the evidence. If Yuanqi didn't dare to slap himself, then don't blame him for playing dirty. He crushed 3 small pieces of ore and shot one into Yi Wenqi's body, and another 2 towards the men who whipped Yi Ling. Then, he carried Yi Ling and left. Looking at Yi Mo's disappearing shadow, Yi Beirong seemed to have aged 10 years. After a long time, he murmured, "Is the Yi family going to end?" Yi Wenqi didn't realize that his life was saved by Yi Mo. Now that Yi Mo left, he immediately said, "Father, don't worry. Since Yi Mo didn't kill today, then he shouldn't. Although he's strong, he's only one person. Could he compare with the entire family? Would he not be afraid of the country's judgment?" "Shut up. You think I don't know your little axe? You wanted to suppress Yi Mo, that's fine. But now you even want to touch Yi Zifeng. You didn't know anything about Yi Ling stealing the Dragon Balls? Although Yi Ling is unforgivable. But you knew what Yi Ling did and you didn't stop her. I originally thought that after the Yi family leaves the political scene, I might as well give you the family. But now, it seemed like I was very wrong." Yi Beirong spoke so hastily that he coughed. Seeing no one from the Yi family was awake to reality, Yi Beirong sighed once again. The only elite of the Yi family was kicked out. One that was slightly better was also suppressed. In order to protect Yi Zifeng, he had to send Yi Zifeng to England. And now, Yi Wenqi still talked with arrogance. Yi Mo wasn't even afraid of Nanqing. Even the Song family felt fearful of Yi Mo. Why would he be scared of the Yi family? Yi Beirong said with a lack of interest, "I'm really disappointed. The Song family could find out Yi Mo's power and his identity and not dare to fight him. But our Yi family acted like a fool and didn't know anything. Yilong, your intel job is really well done. Wenjin, the Gu Luo guy Yi Ling knew was introduced by you, right? Why is Yi Lu fine? Do you all think I'm old?" Yi Wenqi had a pale face but didn't argue. Seeing everyone was silent, Yi Beirong was more disappointed. After a while, he said, "Yi Wenqi tomorrow? Apply for a relocation out of Beijing. You can decide where you go. Wenjin, tomorrow hand in a resign and go with your second brother and do business. From today onwards, no one is allowed in the Yi family mansion without my permission." Saying this, Yi Beirong pretty much removed Yi Wenqi and Yi Wenjin from the authority center of the Yi family. Although he gave Yi Ling to Yi Wenqi to deal with, Yi Wenqi didn't have any kinship in mind, and that made him greatly disappointed. "Grandpa, in that way, wouldn't our family gradually leave the 5 great families of Beijing?" Yi Huang heard that his father was leaving Beijing and he was not satisfied. He knew that once he left Beijing, he would no longer be the Yi family young master. "Humph, the 5 great families, once I'm dead, why should the Yi family be one of the 5 great families? Stop dreaming. Let our fame stop here. If anyone stirs up trouble, go clean up yourself. Everyone leave. Yi Long and Bai Guang stay." Yi Beirong finished the words and leaned tiredly against the chair. He had a plan. It was an all-in bet. If he failed, the Yi family would indeed leave the Beijing Authority Center. As such, he wouldn't tell his plan here. The Yi family members dejectedly left the meeting room, although Yi Wenqi wanted to argue a little. But he knew that what his father decided on was adamant. He already had no choice but to retreat. At last, the entire room was only left with Yi Beirong, Yi Long, Yi Beiguang, and the brother Jing who never spoke. Unexpectedly, the brother Jing who never spoke smiled and spoke after everyone left. Beirong finally made up his mind to take this step, but that Yi Mo is indeed an elite such talent. Not much young people these days can compare with him. Yi Beirong smiled with great fatigue. "I knew I couldn't hide it from brother Jing, but I really have no choice. Not many of my sons are talented. They only know how to fight amongst themselves. Wenqi is only a little smart but still can't be the leader of the family. My original plans are wrong. Although Yi Mo ravaged the Yi family, but this might not be a bad thing. You can't rise from the ashes without being burned first." The old man nodded. "Brother Beirong is right in taking this step. After Wenqi and Wenjin leave Beijing, you can bring Zifeng back and gradually hand the family over to him. Although Yi Mo is not on good terms with the Yi family, he seems to be pretty good to Yi Ling. That would be mean he would be good to Zifeng. As long as Zifeng is the leader of the Yi family, then if something were to happen, Yimo wouldn't stand and watch. Looking at his wide connections and his fierce means, you can just tell the Yi family will blossom. Yilong finally understood what the leader meant. He wanted to say something but eventually couldn't. Yi Beirong looked at Yilong and said, "Originally, I gave most of the authority to Wenqi and Wenjin. Your resources were limited, so I don't blame you for not having enough intel. But from today on, I will give a lot of resources to you. If you still can't make some progress, then decide what to do yourself." "Yes, leader. Don't worry. I won't disappoint you." Yilong was full of joy after hearing this. His resources were too limited. It was incomparable to that of Songhai from the Song family. The main reason was because most of the authority were in Yi Wenqi's and Yi Wenjin's hands. In an house in Beijing, although Yi Ling brought Yimo here, Yimo was still unfamiliar with it. He didn't have any impression of living here. The room was relatively clean, so it could be seen that although Yi Ling rarely came to live here, she frequently came to clean it up. Yimo went out to buy some simple meals and a few sets of clothes. Under Yi Mo's qi cultivation treatment, Yi Ling had pretty much fully recovered. Now that she had eaten something, she felt even better. "Brother, how did you know I was captured? How did you know I was in the mosque? Did you ask someone?" After Yi Ling recovered, the first thing she wanted to know was how Yi Mo knew she was captured. Yi Mo still said in a self-blaming tone, "I went to an elite social night in Beijing, and because I taught Song Yi a lesson, I heard people talking about the Yi family. I was worried about you, so I went to your dorm but didn't find you there. My first reaction was that something happened to you. I went to the Yi family, and luckily you were still all right, otherwise, I really wouldn't be able to forgive myself. Thank you, brother. Before, I always looked down on you, but now I know how naive I was. There are some things you can't resist no matter how much you reject it. You and second brother are the most important people to me. Without you, I may have died. After Mum and Dad passed away, I thought no one would care about me. I don't know how many times I felt sad and helpless. But now, I know I still have my brother. But Grandpa is so cold-hearted." Then Yi Ling fell into Yi Mo's arms and started crying. Yi Mo patted Yi Ling's back and blamed himself. To be honest, he never thought of Yi Ling and how she was doing. As for what she did for him, he didn't know at all. If he wasn't trying to find Yi Zifeng this time, even if she was beaten to death, he wouldn't even know. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care at all. But now, he understood that there was something in this world called feelings, kinship. Yi Ling looked down on him, but still did many things for him quietly in her own way for no other reason but him being her brother. Just for that kinship. As for Yi Mo, he came to Beijing only because someone owed him money, and also because he was going to help treat a friend's son. Even Yi Zifeng, he only thought of visiting him after getting here. Now, he understood that for someone like him who seemed no one knew and cared in this world, at least he still had a sister who cared about him. For the first time, Yi Mo felt some warmth at the bottom of his heart, making him lose himself in thought. After a while, he said in a self-blaming tone, "Sorry, Yi Ling. I never thought about you and made you suffer so much. Yi Ling suddenly said in a happy tone, "Brother, then if something good happens from now on, you need to remember me. In fact, I'm really happy to see you so strong and capable. Dad must be happier. Although I didn't achieve it, but Dad's last wishes came true. After second brother comes back, we will move out together. I won't stay in Beijing anymore. I don't like it here." Then Yi Ling suddenly thought of something. She immediately said, "Brother, then big uncle saying that you are naturally impotent must be fake, right? I knew it. If he didn't tell me yesterday, I would have thought it was true. They really are bad to the bone." Yi Mo touched his nose in a fit of awkwardness. He thought against it, but the results were indeed correct. He didn't want to talk about this topic with Yi Ling. "Hee, brother, why are you being shy? You're already at this age. Okay, I'll save your face and won't talk about it. I feel really energetic. It's night already, so I'll invite you to a good meal tomorrow." Yi Ling laughed. She didn't think Yi Mo would be this shy. Her dorm mates were so much more open. This time, their talk was much more intimate than last night. After this, Yi Mo and Yi Ling felt the care they had for each other. Their originally distant relationship became closer. Brother, I'm going to take a shower and sleep. I'm going to invite my dorm mates tomorrow for food. We'll go together. You can sleep in second brother's room. Yiling wanted to shower and sleep. Although she had recovered, she still felt tired soon. Emo, on the other hand, gathered those few ores and prepared to make a storage ring that night and a protective amulet for Yiling. He didn't want Yiling to undergo such torture again. If one were to compare intel capabilities, not many powers could exceed the Song family. Other than the government, the Song family intel could be ranked in the top 3. The Song family knew what happened at the Yi family that same night, and they held another family meeting in the middle of the night. The Song family had never had such frequent family meetings, but now all the Song family people knew it was because of Emo. Even Song Yi was carried in, but the injuries he received were much more severe than Song Xiaochen. Song Qiming looked coldly at Song Yi and said, Song Yi disregarded the Song family's rules and challenged Emo on his own. Leave Beijing tomorrow and go elsewhere. Without my order, you are not to return to Beijing again. Song Qiming showed his calm and resolute decision-making that was no less than Yi Beirong's. Hearing that he was not allowed in Beijing, Song Yi's face immediately became pale and quickly said, Big uncle. I didn't know he was Emo at the time. Song Qiming didn't even talk but had a very angry face. Song Yi's heart immediately sunk down. Before he could say more, he was carried out. Song Qiming then said, Song Yi said he didn't know it was Emo. If he wasn't so cocky, how could such thing happen? Our Song family isn't scared of Emo, and we will eventually deal with him, but not now. So if anyone makes Song Yi's mistake, then don't blame me. Song Hai, report the news you received from Sai-Na Peninsula last night. No one dared to talk. If they spoke now, it would anger the family leader. Even with Song Yi's direct lineage, he was sent away so easily. Who dared to disobey the rules now? In addition, even the leader's own son was killed by Emo, so it could be said that no one wanted to kill Emo more than Song Qiming. If he could endure it, who didn't dare to? They could only say that Song Yi was unlucky or his arrogance brought him bad luck. Song Qiming indeed felt depressed. He wanted to wait till Hu Qiu's master came back before making a move on Emo, but now it seemed to be insufficient. Song Hai stood up and said, According to the news I received from Sai-Na Peninsula, Emo went to Sai-Na Peninsula and killed Qianlong II in front of Nanqing's #1 strongest man, Wu Chong. It is said that Lang Ji controls Nanqing now, and it is said that Lang Ji is working for Emo. This news is not yet confirmed, but another news is that Lang Ji's position isn't stable yet and was heavily injured in a conflict. He is yet to solidify his position as #1 in Nanqing. Then, Song Hai paused and continued. Although Emo killed Qianlong II, he didn't interfere with Nanqing's internal business and left Sai-Na Peninsula straight away. After Song Hai finished speaking, the room fell into a choking silence, and Song Qiming's face grew worse and worse. All the people here were the elite of the Song family. There was no one who didn't know about Nanqing, and Emo had actually charged into the Nanqing headquarters by himself and killed Qianlong II straight away. It was something that people wouldn't even imagine. There were more than 2,000 troops in Nanqing headquarters, but Emo came and went as he pleased. How much people did the Song family have? The only advantage they had was that they were a big powerful family of Beijing and was situated in the nation's power center. Emo was not arrogant enough to take on a country now, and that's why the Song family was fine till now. No wonder the family leader said more than once not to mess with Emo. Even after a few members were killed, he still didn't dare to mess with him. This was impossible before. Who didn't know the Song family's arrogance in Beijing? Even if they suffered a minor loss, the Song family would take full revenge. Now that the Song family suffered so heavily again and again, they could still manage to endure it. Although he had Song Hai's report once before, Song Qiming still couldn't help but to feel shocked. Emo was no longer someone that could be dealt with by numbers. There must be someone as strong as him. Other than the hidden sex, perhaps no one could do anything to him. At the same time, Song Qiming felt lucky that he made the order not to mess with Emo. Otherwise, if he pissed off Emo, it would really be hard to say if the Song family would still exist. This was the reason why he was so angry at Song Yi. Although the Song family was an extremely large family, as the leader of the family, he needed to be very careful and not be impulsive. If Yi Mo could rampage in the Yi family, then so could he at the Song family. Song Qiming calmed his feelings before saying, "Song Hai, tell us about what happened at the Yi family last night." Yes, because Yi Mo's sister Yi Ling stole the Feng Shui Dragon Balls, she was punished. Yi Mo went to the Yi family and saved Yi Ling. At the same time, he cut off Yi One-Sai's left hand. The reason was because he choked Yi Ling's neck. Moreover, the two people who whipped Yi Ling suddenly died not long after Yi Mo left. There's another unconfirmed news, and that's Huang Yu from the Hidden Sects had his wrists broken and had one leg severed by Yi Mo. Song Hai felt fear even after saying it himself. Yi Mo could make someone suddenly die after he left. This mean was too scary. He looked at the lost Song family people and sighed before saying, "These news weren't what shocked me the most. What makes me unwilling to believe was that last night, there was Nanqing people who went to the Yi family. They were told to fuck off by Yi Mo and they left in a hurry, not daring to say anything. It seemed that Nanqing might be really afraid of Yi Mo." Another news was that last night, the Flying Eagle squad members also went to the Yi family, but 3 Flying Snow squad members were also very respectful to Yi Mo. In other words, Yi Mo is now good on both sides. Even the Flying Special Ops Forces are reverent to him. It could be seen that we really shouldn't take him head-on. After reporting this, the entire meeting room fell silent. After a long time, Song Qishan said, "Yi Mo definitely isn't someone who can be conquered by numbers. My idea is that we not only shouldn't mess with him, but should instead get close to him." Song Qiming waved his hand. "No need, we can't coexist with him, and he wouldn't pay attention to us. But we can't mess with him now. Song Hai, try to get close to some hidden sect masters at all costs. At least tertiary stage of black level or even earth level." "Yes," Song Hai replied immediately. Song Hai did things cleanly and swiftly, and Song Qiming was very satisfied about this. Yi Mo spent a night's time and made a storage ring with a 3 cubic meter storage space. His power was too low now, so he could only make something that big. He carefully put the remaining space abyssal rock in his storage ring. That black jade was forged into 2 jade necklaces amulets by Yi Mo. The jade necklace had some attacking abilities but was mainly for defense. Because the material was expensive, Yi Mo was not stingy on his cultivation chi in making it. The 2 amulets he made had permanent effect, but each time after use its power would weaken a little. However, after a long time of not using it, it would gradually recharge. The reason was because Yi Mo's power was too low right now. If he wasn't really interested in concocting pills and forging artifacts before, he probably wouldn't even be able to create such an effect. It was like how he made runic papers. It would take him a few days to make a SOSO runic paper. After wearing the storage ring, Yi Mo finally felt relieved a lot. This was so much more convenient than carrying a big bag. The only thing was that this storage space was too small. Yi Ling packed everything up and intentionally wore a pretty dress before realizing that Yi Mo still hadn't come out. It was already past 9 a.m. Just when she wanted to knock, Yi Mo opened the door and came out. He seemed very fatigued. "Brother, what's wrong?" Yi Ling was shocked. Could yesterday's battle left some internal injuries? Yi Mo smiled and said, "Nothing. I made a defense amulet for you. Wear it on you from now on and don't take it off casually." Then he gave the amulet to Yi Ling. The chain was made with a few materials. It had a warm, serene, and comfortable feeling when held in hand. Yi Ling took over the necklace with joy and exclaimed, "Brother, this necklace is really pretty. How did you make it? Did you make it with hand?" Then before Yi Mo replied, she wore it straight away. As soon as she did, she felt a cool sensation surge up in her heart. "Brother, I didn't know you had this skill. You can make a living with just this." Yi Mo speechlessly looked at Yi Ling. Although he couldn't starve to death from selling this, but could it be sold on a large scale? "Brother, did you not sleep the last night to make this?" Yi Ling suddenly thought of Yi Mo's fatigued expression and asked. Yi Mo subconsciously said, "MHM, I'm afraid you'll be in danger again when I'm not around you. So I made this protective amulet for you. You must not take it off. Do you understand? Yiling's eyes went red as she reached out and hugged Yimo. It's so good to have a brother. Seeing Yiling so happy, so was Yimo. He immediately said, in fact I made two, I still have another here. Brother, who's the other one for? Is it for your girlfriend? Brother, do you have a girl Riend? Tell me quick. I must see if she's worth my brother. Yiling spat out a series of words like fireworks, making Yimo not know which one to answer. However, he was also dazed. When he made them last night, he just made two. Who was the other one for? Luo Susu? A name suddenly jumped out of Yimo's brain, making him lost in thought. After Zhua Aigua had been on the phone with Yimo, his family hurried to Beijing the next day. Yimo kept his promise and came to Beijing, so there was no way he would let this chance slip. He even regret leaving the country at the wrong time, but on the second night, he and his family still timely arrived at Beijing on time. Just when they left the airport, Zhua Aigua called Yimo, but what made him worried was that Yimo's phone was shut. Due to Zhua Huadong's condition, both he and his wife felt sorry for their son, so they took him to America to relax. Originally, when Zhua Aigua saw Yimo, Yimo told him he would come to Beijing within a year and help him treat his son, but it had only been a few months and there was no news from Yimo at all. Although Zhua Aigua trusted Yimo to a great deal, his wife didn't believe so. It was because Zhua Aigua gave something away which was used to treat his son. And because of this, she had many fights with Zhua Aigua. They were fighting to the stage of divorce, and going abroad this time was also to ease up the tension in their relationship. They didn't expect to arrive in America for just a few days and Yimo would call them. Of course, Zhua Aigua and his wife returned without hesitation. Didn't you say that doctor will be waiting for us? Why is his phone off now? Being unable to reach Yimo once they came back to Beijing, Zhua Aigua's wife couldn't help but to feel more uncomfortable. Zhua Aigua sighed. He could understand his wife's feeling, but Yimo was someone magical. How could that person go back on his words? He didn't bother explaining this to his wife though. Some things, the more one explained, the more complicated it became. Their originally excited mood became dejected after the family was unable to reach Yimo. Kai Qing, Zhua Aigua's wife, reproached Zhua Aigua a few sentences and no longer had the mood to argue with him. The family went back to their home silently. When they opened the door, they saw Zhua Yangqing sitting in the living room in a very distressed manner. What are you doing, Yangqing? Zhua Aigua curiously asked Zhua Yangqing. She seemed to be acting erratic today. Normally, whenever Zhua Aigua returned from a trip, especially overseas, the first thing she would ask was what he brought back for her. She wouldn't be acting like she was today. Zhua Yangqing said, I originally found that doctor who treated grandpa's disease, but I was interrupted by a bastard. You found that doctor? Where was he? Kai Qing immediately exclaimed with joy. In her eyes, that doctor who treated her big uncle was much more better than the one Zhua Aigua met at Flowing Snake. I don't know where he is now either. If it wasn't for Qin Sun, that bastard, perhaps I would have brought him back. If I'm to see him again, I wouldn't let him go even if he went to the toilet, Zhua Yangqing dejectedly said. Yangqing, you're a girl. Don't be so rude. Although Zhua Aigua believed that the doctor who treated his big uncle must be very skilled, but he still had great faith in Yimo. Seeing that Kai Qing was disappointed, she quickly said, Third aunt, don't worry. I know who his sister is. I can definitely find him. Who? This time, Zhua Aigua and his wife asked at the same time. It's Yi Ling from my school. That doctor is called Yimo. You must know him. He was the one kicked out by the Yi family. At first, I couldn't believe it too, but after talking with him for 10 minutes, I knew it was him, Zhua Yangqing said without noticing Zhua Aigua's expression. What? Zhua Yangqing saw her third uncle's mouth wide open in shock. Zhua Aigua patted his head and said, It seems that they are probably the same person. The doctor I was looking for is also Yimo. I don't think there can be two Yimo appearing at the same place and both be skilled medically. Yimo also had a shower and changed into casual clothes that Yiling bought for him. After wearing so, he seemed much better looking. Yiling circled Yimo around a few times and complimented, Brother, I didn't think you would look so handsome after changing you into a famous brand. If the girls in my dorm saw you, they would probably devour you to the bones. That Ning Qingxue really don't what's good for her. How dare she kick away my brother who is so handsome. Hearing Yi Ling talk about Ning Qingxue, Emo suddenly thought of that day after following Black Snake. He didn't even go see Qi Wanqing and Ning Qingxue. He probably should have done so now that he thought about it. But just thinking that Ning Qingxue might have caught some feelings for him, Emo felt a fit of helplessness. Ning Qingxue was indeed an excellent girl. Other than the initial princess syndrome, she changed a lot after living with him for nearly a month. From using her body to protect the silver heart grass, preparing the suicidal recording and following him to Flowing Snake and the desert. Perhaps she only thought it was out of guilt, but Emo knew that it was far more than guilt. Although Emo knew that she really need not be guilty, but he couldn't explain this to her. At least she was an emotional person. Although she didn't see the holistic view sometimes, she was kind-hearted. Once she was set on something, she was very stubborn. Thinking about this, Emo felt he had overdone it. Although he didn't dare to stay together with Ning Qingxue in the desert, she still came all that far to the desert just to see him. Meanwhile, he just left. Did this mean he didn't dare to face her? It was impossible to say that he wasn't a little bit interested in Ning Qingxue at all. But why didn't he dare to accept her? Emo asked himself but immediately, and he suddenly thought of Luo Ying. But why did he have some faint feelings for Luo Susu? Was it just because she was named Luo and gave him a feeling of Luo Ying? Emo shook his head. He understood that his feelings for Luo Susu was completely because of that accidental touch, or because they had each other's blood in their bodies, or perhaps they were the same type of people. Brother, what's wrong? Yi Ling felt Emo was lost in thought and asked. Emo shook his head and said, Ning Qingxue is actually a good girl. Don't talk about her like that. She doesn't owe me anything and… Emo didn't continue. Yi Ling looked at Emo in shock and said, Brother, are you really in love with her? In fact, I feel she's a match for you, but she didn't say. Ning Qingxue looked down on him. Seeing that Emo had some things in his heart, Yi Ling quickly pulled Emo's hand and said, Brother, if you like her, then chase her. She's not someone that's significant. We'll go eat first. I already invited the people from my dorm, so they should be out. Let's go. Without letting Emo argue, she dragged him out. But before choosing a place to eat, Tianhe and the others saw that Emo seemed different from yesterday. The main reason was he was packaged by Yi Ling. Emo was helpless with the girl's audacity, and eventually, Yi Ling could only helpless step in to stop them. After lunch, Emo really couldn't handle their enthusiasm and told Yi Ling he had some business with his friends and told her to quickly deal with the things here and leave with him for Luozong. After Emo had been gone for a long time, Yi Ling and the others went back to their dorm. At this time, Tianhe was still asking Yi Ling, Ling Zi, you sure he's your brother? Emo? Your biological brother. Dan Dan and Lulu all had boyfriends, so they could only watch Tianhe being curious and jealousy. Yi Ling said in a not-so-satisfied tone, Change your temperament first. My brother likes women like Ning Qingxue. I don't think you have much of a chance. Ning Qingxue? Sigh, the opponent is too strong. Tianhe gave off a long sigh and hugged her blanket into sleep. After Emo left those people, he bought a set of silver needles but didn't call Zhuo Aigua. He knew that Zhuo Aigua must have came back yesterday, so he planned to just go straight to his house. What Emo didn't expect was that it was Zhuo Yangqing who opened the door. But soon, he realized that both of them had the same surname, and in addition, didn't he meet her last yesterday as well? Ha! When Zhuo Yangqing saw it was Emo standing at the door, it was only 0.01 seconds before she grabbed Emo's arm and said, You must not leave this time. A ball of softness stuck to Emo's arm. Emo coughed. Hey, let go. You're letting me take advantage of you. Zhuo Yangqing's face only slightly blushed as she immediately said, You said you would wait for the day before yesterday, but why did you leave? If I let go, what if you leave again? Emo helplessly said, I came especially for Zhuo Aigua, how could I leave? At this moment, Zhuo Aigua had come out and saw Emo standing at the door. He immediately came up with a face full of joy and surprise. Brother Yi, you really came, quick. Come in. Yangqing, why are you still holding his arm? Quickly go make Uncle Emo some tea. What? Uncle Yemo? Xianxia understood that Yemo indeed came for her third uncle. But what made her depressed was that Yemo was only 2 or 3 years older than her. How did he become her uncle? Xianxia helped Yemo make some tea and circled once around Yemo before saying, Dr. Yi, how come I feel you're so much more handsome today? Right, you really look different wearing expensive brands. Oh, and I heard Ning Qingxue married with you again. Is this real or fake? Yemo looked at Xianxia speechlessly. He suddenly thought of Wang Ying. These two girls were really alike. The first time Yemo saw Xianxia, he thought she was a girl that was too reserved. But now, it seemed that he must never really take that first impression. She was just saying how she wouldn't let him go. But now, she had already completely forgotten her purpose. Yangqing, you really don't know how to be more conservative, you're already 22, Shuaigua said with unsatisfaction. Xianxia poked out her tongue and quickly sat beside Yemo, just observing him but not saying anything. Kai Qing looked more nervous and didn't know what to do. Instead, she just kept giving her husband hints, but Shuaigua, on the other hand, didn't seem to see it at all. Yemo saw it, however, and smiled. I'll have a look at the kid first. I still need to get back to Luotsang SAP. Brother Yi, you live in Luotsang now? Shuaigua asked. Xianxia worriedly said, Dr. Yi, you can't go. You still haven't looked at my grandpa's condition yet. It doesn't matter how much you charge. My aunt is at home, and she won't argue with the price like me. In Xianxia's eyes, Yemo was a doctor that only looked at money. Yangqing, Shuaigua unhappily said. Yemo waved his hand and said to Xianxia, although I can treat your grandpa's disease, I'm missing some medicine. If I do have them, your grandpa can live for another 2 to 3 decades. If you want to treat him now without those medicine, he may live 10 years less. Seeing that Xianxia was dazed, Yemo didn't bother with her and just went straight into Huadong's room. Yemo carefully looked at his situation and his eyebrows began to frown more. Huadong's condition was artificial. Who was it? Using such evil means against a child a few years old? There was a gust of qi in his head. For ancient martial arts cultivators, it was inner qi. It could be kept inside the human body to damage bodily functions. No wonder modern medicine couldn't diagnose it. Seeing Yemo frown, Shuaigua felt worried but didn't dare to ask, scared that he may interrupt Yemo's train of thought. If even Yemo didn't have a way, then only death awaited his son. Seeing Shuaigua worried, Yemo smiled and said, Brother Xue, don't worry. Your son's condition isn't hard for me. I can cure him in 20 to 30 minutes. Splat! Kai Qing's tub fell to the ground and water splashed everywhere. It had been 3 years, and it was the first time she heard someone say her child could be cured in 30 minutes. Even if Yemo was practicing medicine for the first time, she would still believe Yemo's words just because he said he could cure Huatang. Brother Yi, are you being serious? Shuaigua stuttered in excitement. Although he pretended he didn't care, his son was more important to him than anything else. Yemo nodded. I didn't lie. I just have one question I want to ask you. When did this occur and were there any abnormal symptoms before and after? And did you come into conflict with someone before Huadong's condition occurred? Conflict? No, although I had some business opponents, I never got into conflict or enmity with anyone. Brother Yi, are you saying Huadong's condition is... Shuaigua looked at Yemo in shock. Yemo's tone seemed to suggest that his son's disease was artificial and not natural. Yemo nodded. It should be artificial. We'll talk about this after I cured him. Then, Yemo took a silver needle and stabbed it into Huadong's head and started to remove that sliver of inner qi. 10 minutes or so later, he had already removed it completely. Then, he used his qi to heal the inside of Huadong's head. After doing these, Yemo packed up the needles. He felt something different when he removed the qi. He wouldn't believe that people could leave marks or imprints on qi on this planet, but he had that feeling. He couldn't think of anything, so he brushed these thoughts aside. He believed that if he were to encounter this person, he could recognize him as soon as they fought. Is our Huatang all right now? Kai Qing couldn't care about the tub on the floor and asked worriedly. Yemo nodded. He should be fine. At this moment, Xue Huatang opened his eyes, looked at Xue Aigua before looking at Kai Qing, and then said half-consciously, "Dad? Mom? Why did I feel like I slept for a long time?" "Huatang, you're really okay." Hearing that Xue Huatang could call Mum and Dad, Kai Qing rushed up with tears of joy and hugged her son. Xue Aigua looked excitedly at his son. The thing they had been troubled with was finally resolved by Yemo in a little more than 10 minutes. Yemo became more and more mysterious in his eyes. He only felt joy and gratefulness. He knew that if he said more words of gratitude, it would not be good. Xue Yangqing stood at the door and looked at Yemo in astonishment too. Yemo's technique today was much more advanced than the one he used to treat her grandpa. Xue Huatang had been sick for 2 years and no one could do anything about it, and he actually managed to cure it. He really was a magical doctor. She must keep tight eyes on him this time. "Huatang, tell Daddy, how did you fall asleep?" Xue Aigua thought of Yemo's words and immediately asked. He was afraid his son would forget after time. Xue Huatang thought a long while before saying, "I can't remember. I think there was an uncle who pressed his hand on my head, and then I fell asleep. And there was also Pang Hu. Another uncle felt Pang Hu's head for a while and seemed to compare something. I can't remember anything else." "If you can't remember it, don't worry, Huatang. Sleep first." Xue Aigua had understood that what Yemo said may be true. "I know that Pang Hu, he's Huatang's classmate and also seemed to have gotten sick and died. The same thing probably happened to him," Kai Qing said with fear. They didn't have any enmity with anyone. So why was someone trying to harm their son in such ways? And the Zhuo family wasn't a small family in Beijing. Who actually had the audacity? Yemo knew these things were hard to explain, although the couple tried to get him to stay. But he still said he was going to leave. He had a lot of things to do and didn't have time to stay here. However, Xue Yangqing grabbed Yemo. "You must come and help my grandpa. Why don't you leave your number with me?" Seeing Xue Yangqing's worried face and Xue Aigua's hopeful face, Yemo left his number and wrote a recipe. He told Xue Yangqing to gather the materials, and the next time he came to Beijing, he would come help her grandpa. Finally, Xue Yangqing let go of Yemo reluctantly. Yemo returned to his place, and Yiling had been waiting for him for a long time. "Brother, when are we going to Luotsong?" Yiling hesitated and asked. Yemo looked curiously and Yiling and asked, "Do you still have something to do?" Yiling nodded. "I still have 2 months before I graduate. Can we go Luotsong 2 months later?" And today, second brother called me in the afternoon. He would come back in a few days and told me to wait for him. I believe he must have something. Seeing that Yemo remained silent, Yiling quickly said, "In the afternoon, Grandpa also called me. Grandpa had never called me before, and yet he apologized to us 3. He said he wanted to have a good chat with us after second brother comes back. I don't know whether or not I should listen to him, but brother, if you don't think I should stay, then I will go to Luotsong with you immediately. I'll give second brother a call later." Yemo had begun to understand what Yi Beirong was thinking. He wanted to use his power through Yi Zifeng, but he didn't mind and thought that even if Yi Ling stayed in Beijing, the people from Yi family wouldn't dare to do anything to her. Plus, when he returned to Luotsong, he might have to go out once. Yi Ling didn't know anyone at Luotsong, and it might be hard for her. Thinking about this, Yemo nodded and said, "In that case, you can stay and wait until Zifeng comes back. If there's something, call me immediately. Give this bracelet to Zifeng. I'm going back to Luotsong today." Yemo said this because he knew that Yi Zifeng felt a great sense of belonging to the Yi family, and Yi Zifeng was probably a little more important than him in Yiling's heart. As such, he didn't try to persuade Yiling from staying. Although Yiling could only send Yemo on his way with reluctance, she really wanted to leave Beijing with Yemo. She hated this place, but a few days later, her second brother would come back. She was afraid that the Yi family would try to harm Yi Zifeng, so there were some things she needed to tell him. Yemo could realize that the Yi family was trying to use him through Yi Zifeng, but she couldn't. As soon as he went back to his place in Luotsong, he immediately felt something was wrong when he was still at a distance from the mansion. His spirit sense scanned in immediately. The mansion was empty, and both Yu Eru and Lu Xiaozhen were not there. If they were just both not there, then he would have thought they were out doing something. However, the scene in the yard made him furious. The thing he cared about the most, the 10 or so budded silver heartgrass, were gone. There were messy digging marks everywhere. Obviously, they were dug away. Although they grew very slow here, countless times slower than Ninghai, but they still budded. Now, however, they were dug away. It was already very slow to cultivate here. If he didn't find that silver heartgrass, perhaps he wouldn't even be at stage 2 chi gathering, much less stage 3. The reason he could reach stage 3 was mostly because of that spirit well in the desert. Thus, silver heartgrass was Yi Mo's last hope. The silver heartgrass could be used for cultivators up to and below stage 6, but now, his hope were dug away in 3 days' time after he left. This wasn't all. He didn't know what happened to Yu Eru and Lu Xiaozhen. Both of them knew how much he treasured the silver heartgrass and wouldn't allow other people to dig it away. Now that the grass had disappeared, what would have happened to them? Emo was sure that even if the Song family people knew he lived here, they wouldn't dare to touch it, much less Nanqing people. Since this person could dig it away and not damage it, it meant that he knew its uses. Emo wouldn't believe that there were cultivators here. He had done his research. Cultivators here only existed in legends. No one would believe it. However, ancient martial arts and special powers did exist here. Some special power owners could use cultivation-like attacks, but those with special powers could only use one type of attack, unlike cultivators. Yemo had stayed an entire day at Flying Snow Squad, and Zhangju also introduced Yemo to the country's special power squad. Their status was on par of that of Flying Sao Squad. Compared to Flying Snow Squad, they each had their merits, but in Yemo's eyes, these special powers were weaker than those ancient martial arts cultivators. Their attacks weren't sharp enough. The silver heartgrass was not only useful for Yemo, but also for people with special powers and ancient martial artists. Yemo, however, believed no one knew this, as silver heartgrass needed to be concocted into pills with other ingredients before it would be of great help to them. But other than himself, he was yet to find anyone who could concoct pills. Yemo knew that this wasn't absolute. He only guessed that no one knew how to concoct pills here. But what if someone knew how to? The reality was that his silver heartgrass was taken. But he didn't have any clue as to who did it. He could only blame himself for leaving in a rush that day following the Nanqing people and then going to Beijing after. He didn't even have time to set up a formation. It seemed that he needed to set one up for here. Just when Yemo wanted to go inside and look, Lu Xiaozhen rushed here. Yemo felt relieved, since she was okay. And it meant Yu Eru was fine too. "Master, you're back." Lu Xiaozhen looked at Yemo with joy. Each time there was hardship, her master would appear. The last time Yu Eru was taken away, this happened too. The moment she saw Yemo, she felt secure. What happened to Eru? Looking at Lu Xiaozhen, he knew something must have happened to Eru. The second day you left, someone came and said they wanted the grass you planted and wanted to buy it. Of course, Eru didn't allow it, so these people robbed them. Eru stopped them and had his arm broken. By the time I came back, they were still beating up Eru, so I immediately called the police. When the police came, these people had left, Lu Xiaozhen said. Yemo immediately asked, "Where's Eru?" "He's still in the hospital, he should be fine." But when these people left, they told Eru that they would still be back. Lu Xiaozhen said again. To ask who planted these seeds, right? Yemo's face sunk. How dare they think about his silver heartgrass? These people really had guts. Since they know its use, it meant that they weren't ordinary people. Yemo wanted to see who they were. Yes. Lu Xiaozhen lowered her head. She knew how important they were to her master, but she and Eru couldn't protect it. You are not to blame for this. Go bring Eru back. He doesn't need to stay in the hospital anymore. We opened a clinic ourselves, so I will deal with the hospital things. I'm going out for a bit now, and I'll be back at night. He was going to buy some materials to set up a formation flag. Otherwise, he really didn't feel secure planting the silver heartgrass seeds here. Who knew if he was still going to plant more spirit grass here? When Yemo came to the jade market, he knew that he couldn't buy a lot of the materials he needed, so he could only replace it with some jade and copper. He could refine some copper essence from copper, but that wasted too much energy. However, in order to set up the formation, it was necessary. After a long day, Yemo almost filled up his storage ring before preparing to go back. He lost more than half of the $600,000 he had just acquired. Just when he walked out of the jade market, he saw an anxious figure who seemed familiar. When the person turned around, he immediately recognized it was Yu Miaodong. Not only was her face worried, but she also seemed fatigued from a long journey. Although she was still on the run the last time he saw her, but she still had her composure at that time. Today, he could only see a shabby woman, but her curvaceous body still showed that she was a woman. Yu Miaodong obviously didn't see Yemo. She kept her head low as she went into a small shop. Yemo saw her take out some notes from her bag and bought a bread. "Girl, let's go. I'll invite you to something spicy." As soon as she walked out of the small shop, two youths stopped her. There were these hoodlums everywhere. As long as one moved aside, none of them really dared to do anything. However, Yu Miaodong's face changed as she turned to run. The two little hoodlums were like dogs. As soon as they saw her run, they immediately chased. Usually when one met dogs, if one didn't run, then the dog wouldn't dare to do anything. However, if one did run, the dogs would immediately chase after them. What happened? Yemo looked at Yu Miaodong, who ran towards him, and still asked. Although he helped Wu Xueming more than the latter helped him, and that Wu Xueming seemed to have changed, Yemo wasn't a heartless person. If he could casually help Yu Miaodong, he didn't mind doing so. "Huh!" Yu Miaodong saw Yemo and her face showed expression of surprise and delight. She didn't even realize she dropped her bread on the ground. "Yemo, I finally found you." Yu Miaodong sounded as though she was already looking for Yemo. "You came looking for me?" Yemo could tell that she was, but he felt it was weird. Even if Wu Xueming needed something, he wouldn't send his girl to look for him. The two hoodlums saw that Yu Miaodong knew Yemo and immediately tried to leave. However, Yemo spoke. "You too. Come here." "What? So what if we come? What do you dare to do to me? I'm from the Metal River, so what if I come, what can you do?" The two hoodlums really came over and one of them cockily spoke. They were hoodlums under Metal River. Yemo looked at Yu Miaodong with great intrigue. Her man was the authoritative figure of Metal River, but she was being chased by Metal River hoodlums. And when she saw these two hoodlums, she was obviously startled and tried to run. This didn't seem right. Yu Miaodong seemed to want to say something, but Yemo knew it wasn't the time to talk, so he went up and kicked each of the hoodlums on the ground to the point they couldn't even crawl up. Then, he said, "Nothing, just kicking you both. What are you going to do?" The two hoodlums knew that they met someone tough, so they didn't talk. The people around saw the two like this and all started laughing. When Yemo brought Yu Miaodong back, Lu Xiaozhen had brought Yu Eru back from the hospital. Both of them hadn't seen Yemo bring back a woman before. Now that they saw this very appealing Yu Miaodong, they immediately got the wrong idea. However, Yu Miaodong's shabby look also made Lu Xiaozhen very puzzled. "Xiaozhen, this is Yu Miaodong, a friend of mine. Take her to get some food and rest. I need to talk to her." Yemo saw that Yu Miaodong looked rather fatigued and knew that she didn't live very well recently and probably ran for her life here. After Yemo treated Eru and asked him carefully, he understood their intentions. They did want to rob the silver heartgrass, but he didn't know how they knew he planted them. Was he followed when he came back from Sai-Na Peninsula? Yemo believed it wouldn't be easy to follow him. "Eru, tell me what that person looked like?" Yemo, the leader, was in his 30s and looked very skinny and bleak. Yu Eru described. This made Yemo think of the bleak man he met at that Luozong artifact social night. Could it be him? Yu Miaodong ate some things and took a shower. She seemed much more vibrant afterwards. At least there were some ruddiness on her face. Looking at Yu Miaodong, who sat opposite to him, although she was still curvaceous, her face still seemed much more fatigued compared to a few months ago. She seemed to want to say something, but without even asking her, he knew something must have happened to Wu Xueming. If Yu Miaodong wanted him to help Wu Xueming, should he go? If he just came to Luozong and was faced with this question, he would go for sure because Wu Xueming was a worthy friend. But now he wasn't sure if he would go. Although he hadn't seen Wu Xueming since leaving Jing City, he could feel that, through what happened last time, Wu Shueming had changed. At least not a worthy friend anymore. Shueming changed a lot. I know what happened with you last time at Luozong. I spoke to him about it, but he said women shouldn't be involved with these things. He even yelled at me. Later on, he lusted more for power and I gradually felt like I didn't know him. He was no longer the person he was before. For more than once, I wanted to leave him, but I couldn't do it. I stayed back again and again. Yu Miaodong didn't wait for Yimo to ask and started talking. Seeing that Yimo was listening but didn't say anything, Yu Miaodong sighed and continued. He changed so much that I felt he was a complete stranger. He even killed the people who Metal Mountain sent to monitor him. It was at that time that I made up my mind to leave him. His lust for power finally caught Metal Mountain's attention and he underestimated Metal Mountain. When Shueming thought he had controlled most of the power in Metal River, Metal Mountain just spent a night and forced Shueming into a struggle to survive. Yu Miaodong suddenly wiped her eyes. Yimo could see her body and hands were shaking. Yu Miaodong didn't continue and took out a pack covered by paper and gave it to Yimo. Before Shueming left, he suddenly woke up and said, if things were to happen again, he wouldn't become big boss of Metal River and would take me far away from Metal River. He told me to give this to you. Then Yu Miaodong gave the package to Yimo. She had completely calmed down. Yimo took it. It felt heavy as though it were a metal slab. He frowned and said, Shueming passed away? Yu Miaodong nodded, stood up and said, I've handed this to you now, I need to go. Wait. Yimo opened the bag and there was a black metal slab inside. Why did Wu Shueming give this to him? Seeing Yimo's confused expression, Yu Miaodong spoke. Shueming said you were practicing ancient martial arts, so this thing should be helpful to you. Yimo nodded and scanned the metal in his hands. Immediately, his face was full of shock. This was an otherworldly gung iron essence. How could there be such a thing on Earth? Where did Wu Shueming get this from? This was rare even in the cultivation realm, much less on Earth. It was the top-tier material for making flying swords. However, it was a little too small. Despite this, this had unimaginable worth in Yimo's hands. The materials he got from Han Zixin weren't even worth 0.1% of this combined. Immediately, Yimo understood Wu Shueming's intentions. That guy must have guessed that he was cultivating ancient martial arts, and that this material should be useful to him. He told Yu Miaodong to bring this to him. So Yimo knew Wu Shueming's intentions were rather clear. He wanted Yimo to save Yu Miaodong's life. With such a material, even if a cultivator were to touch Yu Miaodong, Yimo would try to think of ways to save her, much less a gang organization. Plus, Yimo was not a heartless person. I'm grateful for Brother Shueming's gift. You can stay at my place. Even the Heavenly Emperor wouldn't dare to touch you. As for Metal River, I never considered them a threat. Then, Yimo suddenly thought of something. Yu Miaodong intentionally escaped to Luozong, which meant that she was chased here by the people from Metal River. Was his silver heart grass taken by them? If it was so, then it would be easy. He would annihilate Metal River from Luozong. Hearing Yimo's words, Yu Miaodong couldn't help but to cry. She understood why Wu Shueming told her to bring this and find Yimo. In his eyes, only Yimo could save her life. Yimo wasn't even afraid of Qianlong too. So how could be scared of a mere metal mountain? Who are the people hunting you? Do you know? Yu Miaodong stopped crying and thought a while before saying, one of them looks skinny in his 30s. I saw him at a distance at the station. He looked bleak. That person was probably tracking me. So I followed a tour group and avoided him. Yimo immediately knew that the person Yu Miaodong and Yu Eru spoke of should be the same person. He remembered that bleak man who tried to fight over the space abyssal rock with him. It was quite possibly him. Since that man could tell space abyssal rock was good, he probably could tell that his silver heartgrass was good too. If he knew this would happen, he should have killed him at the social night and not just rob him. That meant this guy was working for Metal River? Last time, Lang Ji said that there was a rather strong master at Metal River who was going to break through. Was he talking about this man? But in Yimo's eyes, although that bleak man was strong, but he was not stronger than Lang Ji. Well, his eyes were really good though. Just from the gift Wu Shueming gave him, he would take over this matter, much less his silver heartgrass was stolen by the Metal River people. You can live here from now on if you feel bored. Learn some medicine with Lu Xiaojin and Yu Eru. I suspect that Metal River stole some of my things, so even if they didn't look for trouble with me, I would go find them. After I eradicate Metal River, you can go wherever you want. Emo was certain that the bleak man was from Metal River. Even if he wasn't, he was related to them. In the following few days, Emo used all his material to make a formation flag and formation plate and set up a defensive formation around the mansion. Then, he made another 3 bracelets and gave them to the 3. He told them that he set up defenses around the mansion and that they needed to wear the bracelet to go in and out. If there are patients, they must go through a certain entrance. Although Yu Miaodan was a bit dubious, Eru and Xiaojin believed Emo deeply. In their hearts, anything Emo said was right. Emo waited another few days and still no one came to the mansion. It seemed that the people who stole the silver heartgrass didn't mean what they said. However, Yiling called and told Emo that her big uncle and fourth uncle were sent away by her grandpa. Now it was still peaceful for her at Beijing. Since the Metal River people didn't come for him, Emo didn't want to wait any longer. He still needed to go to Flowing Snake in some time and didn't have time to waste with them. Since they didn't come, he would go look for them. Su Jingwen hadn't been to a classmate reunion in 3 years. Today was the first time after her graduation that she participated in this. If the reunion didn't happen to be set in Ninghai or if Xiao Lei didn't come as well, she really didn't want to go. Jingwen, everyone is waiting for you to come over quick. Su Jingwen just arrived and Xiao Lei's voice was immediately heard. No matter where Su Jingwen was, she seemed to be the center of attention. Soon, many students gathered around. Yeah, Jingwen, you have never been to a single reunion since graduation. Even Xiao Lei is earlier than you when she came from Beijing. Another girl pulled Su Jingwen while speaking unhappily. Su Jingwen apologetically smiled. A few days ago, my mother was sick. I wasn't in the mood. Oh yeah, Jingwen, I heard Wang Peng say your mother was cured with runic paper. Is that true? You're not really telling me that there is such a magical thing in the world. The girl pulling her hand immediately asked in curiosity. Of course. I went with Jingwen to buy it that day. Wang Peng walked over. Su Jingwen frowned and thought. Wang Peng wasn't her classmate, why was he here? As though seeing Su Jingwen's confusion, Xiao Lei immediately whispered to Su Jingwen. Wang Peng is chasing after me, but I haven't been interested in men lately, so I told him I would go to a reunion. Didn't expect him to follow. Before Su Jingwen said anything, another person said, Runic paper saving lives isn't completely unbelievable. I'll tell you guys something that you probably won't believe. A while ago, my cousin went to Luozong for a magic artifact social night. Haha! Magic artifact. Doesn't this sound metaphysical? Indeed. Cheng Fei, tell us what happened with your cousin? Another male classmate said. Cheng Fei said, Don't be hasty. I once again state that all I am about to say is true. My cousin spent 200K and bought a defense necklace. Then, she heard the stall owner say that his pills are very potent, so she spent another 200K and bought a beauty pill. Your cousin is really rich, that stall owner is probably a fraud. It's a real pity that this comedian isn't on the New Year's Eve show. I really don't know what to say about your cousin. Even if she's rich, she can't waste it like that. Another classmate interrupted. Chun Fei said, My cousin had a lot of spots on her face and they couldn't be removed, and so she believed that person's words. That pill looked black and scary. Everyone in the family were against her eating the pill. At that moment, my cousin also thought she was lied to, but that pill costed 200K, and she didn't want to throw it. As such, she took it as a learning experience. That necklace, on the other hand, looks pretty, and so she wore it. See, I told you that the frauds in the society are too much. If they catch your weakness, they will trick you. Perhaps you won't notice it at the time, but afterwards you would realize that you were tricked, the other male said. However, Cheng Fei shook his head. You thought wrong because the thing that happened a few days ago you would not believe if I told you. That day, my cousin went to the supermarket and discovered thief. She immediately signaled for the victim, however, that thief actually pulled out a knife and stabbed at my cousin. Just when my cousin didn't know what to do, Her necklace shot out a ray of rainbow light and repelled that thief meters away to the point that he couldn't crawl up for a long time. That thief was later caught by the security. I didn't believe it at the time, but my mum said that. My cousin bought that necklace for 200K, and it was said to have 3 times of defensive powers. When she went back, she immediately checked the necklace, and one of the rays disappeared. Cheng Fei, I think you heard too much stories. How could something like that happen? A girl with pimples immediately said. Cheng Fei sneered. Wang Lijuan, you may think I'm telling stories, but I know what I said is true. The first thing my cousin did after getting home was eating that pill, and guess what? You won't believe it, but all the spots on her face disappeared the next day. Now her face is very smooth and shiny. My cousin had spent countless money on her spots, but she wasn't able to treat it. But that small pill just solved the problem. Now can you still say that man is a fraud? I saw this with my own eyes. There really is such thing? A few students behind Wang Lijuan exclaimed. Although they were all classmates, they obviously didn't really believe it. Why can't it be real? We just haven't seen those magical people. The fighting scenes on the movies are CGI, but I believe that those people really exist in the real world. Another guy conformed. At this moment, Xiao Lei also spoke. Although I don't know if what Cheng Fei said is true, but I agree with Zhang Weiwei's words. Those powerful people definitely exist, although they can't fly, but they can still do what they do in movies. Su Jingwen glanced once at Xiao Lei. Of course, she knew that Xiao Lei must have said that while thinking about Emo. Cheng Fei, do you know where the person your cousin bought the pill from is at? Wang Lijuan immediately asked hopefully. Cheng Fei shook his head and said, of course I don't know. People from all over the world come on that night. Who knows where he's from? And my sister immediately went to that place to find that person the next day. But she didn't find anything. The powers of my cousin's necklace had been verified. People would even take it for 2 million, much less 200K. Later, someone offered 2 million for that used necklace, but my cousin didn't sell it. Of course I wouldn't sell it either. If that thing is real, it is too magical, but I'm still a bit dubious. Another guy said. Song Jingwen was interested and asked, Cheng Fei, do you know what that person who sold your cousin the necklace looked like? And where is this social night at? Cheng Fei shook his head. I don't know too well. My cousin said he's very durable to look at, and he dressed low-cost clothes. However, his eyes were very bright. As for the social night, it happens once a year at Luozong. Su Jingwen lost herself for a moment. She subconsciously thought of the man who sold her the runic paper. At that time, he wore shades and she couldn't see his eyes. He also dressed low-cost clothes. Was it that person? Luozong's social night. She heard that Ning Qingxue was also at Luozong now. Perhaps she could go to Luozong and see her while visiting that place. Jingwen. Long time no see, you're getting prettier and prettier. Seeing Su Jingwen lost in thought, Wang Peng's heart felt itchy. When he didn't see Su Jingwen, he felt Xiao Lei was not bad. High build, flashy personality, and a good face. But now that he looked at Su Jingwen again, he found that some people really couldn't be compared together. Su Jingwen's thought was broken by Wang Peng, and she looked uncomfortably at Wang Peng. I'm still the same. Xiao Lei, let's go sit over there. There are some things I need to tell you. Being ignored by Su Jingwen, Wang Peng sneered. Just you wait. Originally, Su Jingwen didn't have a good impression of Wang Peng. After Wang Peng ridiculed many times the person who sold her the charm, she lost all her good opinions of Wang Peng. If she believed him at the time, her mother would still be in the bed. Just when Xiao Lei and Su Jingwen sat down, another young man walked over. One girl suddenly exclaimed, Suolin is here. Almost all the girls rushed to him. Xiao Lei smiled. If I wasn't talking to you, I would go up too. The most handsome man at the school came, and he's still that handsome. I wonder if he would remember you. Pity, if you weren't going to graduate at that time, perhaps you would even be his girlfriend. Su Jingwen also stayed silent briefly. She knew Suolin, of course. She was the only man she had a good impression of at the school. He could be said to be invincibly handsome and was skilled in many ways. It could be said that there was more than a battalion of girls chasing after her. but he never seemed to have any negative news. When they were nearing graduation, Suolin started to chase after her. Although she was a school queen at the time, she was very low-key and so she wasn't ranked number 1. To be honest, she really didn't feel against Suolin chasing her. Perhaps it was just as Xiao Lei said, if it wasn't nearing graduation, perhaps she would have accepted it. Ever after graduation, she specially kept notice of Suolin. She heard he entered the entertainment industry and she stopped following his news. She didn't expect him to be here this time. They were not in the same class, of course. Haha. I heard Su Xiao say that the student reunion of Yen Uni was here, so I came too. It seems I'm still quite welcomed. So many old friends, long time no see. Suolin scanned the surrounding and looked at everyone. Handsome Suo, you are a famous movie star. Would you even remember us, normal citizens? A girl immediately said. Suolin had seen Su Jingwen, who was sitting with Xiao Lei, and his eyes brightened up. He immediately said, haha, I'm not famous. I just debuted and made a few ads. But if you don't look down on me, you can take photos with me if you wish. Then, he didn't wait for these girls to talk before walking towards Su Jingwen. Jingwen, long time no see. Suolin's smile was still so mesmerizing. Su Jingwen also smiled. You're famous now. You may not see us, but we always see you on the screen. Xiao Lei also said. If you are really like that light thief you acted as and can fly into the air, I will start chasing you immediately. Before Su Lin said anything, Su Jingwen smiled. He does not need you to chase, he has a bunch of people chasing after him. No matter how many pursuers I have, they can't compare with you two beautiful ladies. Suolin smiled and said. He paused before continuing. Jingwen, I signed a new movie and I feel you are suited for the female lead role. Would you be interested? And of course, Xiao Lei can also act as the second major female role. Really? What movie? Xiao Lei asked in curiosity. Su Jingwen smiled. Although she wasn't an actor, she was very clear about the dark deals that went on the entertainment industry. So she stood up and said, sorry, I'm not really interested in that. You're looking for Xiao Lei, right? I'm going back. Xiao Lei remembered to come my house after the reunion. Jingwen, you're leaving? Wait, I'll go with you. I still have something I need to ask you. Then Xiao Lei also stood up. Jingwen, you're not gonna go as soon as you see me, right? This reunion hasn't even started. Suolin immediately said. He just realized that Su Jingwen was prettier than the prettiest girl in their uni at that time. No wonder young Master Peng wanted her. If he didn't come today, he really wouldn't know that she was this pretty. Su Jingwen just smiled and said, nah, I really have something to do. Seeing that Su Jingwen was leaving without even staying for long, many fellow classmates tried to persuade her to stay, but she was adamant on leaving. She found that a lot of her classmates seemed so distant and couldn't find the same feelings back then. There was no point in her staying. Okay then, I'll drive you guys, Suolin immediately said. Su Jingwen turned around and said, no need, Thulin. I have my own car. Suolin smiled and said, I'm also preparing to go, but you have a car and I don't. Do you mind if I take a ride with you guys? Su Jingwen hesitated and frowned. Sorry, Suolin, no guy has come into my car. So, she suddenly remembered Yemo. Didn't he sit in her car before? Suolin was at a loss for words, but soon he recovered to normal. He immediately said, at least I can accompany you guys downstairs, right? Su Jingwen didn't detest Suolin. Although her impression of him went straight down after he joined the entertainment industry, it wasn't to the degree of detest, unlike Wang Peng, whom she felt very uncomfortable with. After the three spoke for a bit, soon, a black Audi drove near, but Suolin stood still. He turned around and said, this car is mine, look. Su Jingwen looked at the Audi and said, didn't you say you didn't have a car? How come you have one now? Xiao Lei also looked at Suolin in confusion. Suolin suddenly took out a spray from his pocket and said, because this. He sprayed a few times at both Su Jingwen and Xiao Lei. You? Su Jingwen didn't expect that the previous most handsome guy in the uni would be so low. Suolin looked at the unconscious Xiao Lei and Su Jingwen before saying, I didn't expect it to be this effective. Of course it's effective, I spent a lot of effort getting this. Well done. Suolin, don't worry. I will do what I promised you. A voice sounded behind Suolin. Suolin said, of course I will do what young Master Peng tells me to do. I didn't expect Su Jingwen to be this pretty after a few years. However, Wang Peng said, hurry up and drag them into the car. After that was done, Wang Peng said, no matter how pretty she is, you can only go on Xiao Lei. Don't think about Su Jingwen. Of course. Suolin laughed. Luozong. Although Wu Xueming was killed by Metal Mountain's hands, Otherworldly Entertainment was still the headquarters of Metal River. At the basement of the Otherworldly Entertainment, not only was the bleak man who fought over the space abyssal rock was there, but also the long-haired man who met up with him. Wang Chuan, what did Master say? The bleak man asked. The long-haired man said, Master just called. He said that grass is silver leaf. It's a very precious herb used in ancient martial arts cultivation. Even amongst the hidden sects, it is very precious. He complimented us. He has planted those now and would come here in 2 days. The bleak man felt relieved. Last time, he lost the spirit sensing stone, so his master was very angry. Seeing the bleak man's reaction, Wang Chuan said again, Sumu, Master is still angry about losing the spirit sensing stone last time. Although we managed to find the silver leaf, we still can't relax on the spirit sensing stone. Master thinks that since the silver leaf is in Luozong, then perhaps the spirit sensing stone is also here. Perhaps they are on the same person. Thus, Master will come over in 2 days to check personally. We shouldn't go alert them now. If Master can find the spirit sensing stone, then he'll sure be able to break through. Sumu shook his head and said, it probably won't be. I investigated that Yu Eru is just a normal doctor. He probably thought of the silver leaf as a herb, and he's only an ordinary person himself, nothing to suspect. Wang Chuan nodded. That's true, Master will come to check himself. As long as that person is in Luozong, he definitely wouldn't be able to escape from Master. However, that Yu Eru might have someone behind him. Call Wu Hong over here and get him to ask about the person behind Yu Eru. Sumu immediately ordered. Yes. Wu Hong came to the basement in the shortest time. Although Wu Hong originally served Wu Xueming, he immediately turned to the new people here, Sumu and Wang Chuan, after Wu Xueming died. Not only did he reveal all of Wu Xueming's secrets, but he also did things fast. Thus, they were very happy with Wu Hong. Wu Hong, do you know who is behind Yu Eru? Sumu asked in a satisfied manner, seeing Wu Hong came in so quick. Wu Hong immediately thought of Yemo and said, he has a master called Yemo, and this Yemo was very close to Wu Xueming. He has a master who knows Wu Xueming? Why didn't you report this? Sumu immediately thought of the spirit sensing stone. Wu Hong shakily replied, it was because I had to deal with so much things lately that I forgot. Please forgive me, Brother Su. Wang Chuan said, indeed. Wu Hong has been quite busy lately and did a lot of things. Plus, he didn't know that Yemo would be related to Silver Leaf. Plus, even we only just knew the worth of the Silver Leaf. We shouldn't blame him. Sumu nodded. Since Yu Eru still has a master Yemo, then should we go now and see that Yemo? Wang Chuan nodded and said, yes, I agree. Perhaps the master's guess is right. That Yemo is the person who took our spirit sensing stone. Clap clap. A monotone clap sounded at the door, and at the same time, a cold voice sounded, not bad. You are both very smart. I am the one who took your so-called spirit sensing stone. Oh, I'm Yemo. To prevent you from going out of your way, I came here just for you. Who? Despite Yemo said he was Yemo, Sumu and Wang Chuan was still startled by this sudden voice. They were in the basement with many layers of guards and defense, so how could a stranger come in? Yemo? How did you come in? Sumu and Wang Chuan didn't know Yemo, but Wu Hong did. Yemo sneered. Of course, by walking in. Sumu and Wang Chuan had caught up with reality. Sumu's bleak face showed a sliver of cruelty. No matter how Yemo came in, since he didn't need to leave. You stole the spirit sensing stone? Sumu had recognized that Yemo was the person who fought over the stone with him. Yemo smiled and took out the unused space abyssal rock and said, "Idiot. It's called space abyssal rock. Indeed, I took it, and there's still more than half here." Sumu's face was filled with joy. He didn't think that Yemo would be so dumb to bring the spirit sensing stone. He immediately said, "Capture him." As soon as Sumu said that, the tens of henchmen charged at Yemo. Could be seen they were waiting for the order. Although Yemo didn't have metal nails, but he no longer needed that now. He didn't even use wind blade and just kicked. Shadows of kicks flew out. Thud, thud, thud. Yemo didn't miss a single kick, and none of the henchmen he kicked out could even move. Obviously, Yemo pretty much killed them with one kick. Sumu and Wang Chuan stood up in fear, although they knew that since Yemo would have some strength since he dared to walk in here. But they didn't expect him to be this strong. Although any of them could take on those henchmen, but they definitely wouldn't be able to do it as easy as Yemo, much less killing them all. Originally, the two were planning to attack Yemo while he was distracted, but they didn't expect to have all his underlings defeated with a flurry of shadow kicks. Yemo was very satisfied with his kicks. He learned this from Wu Chang. Wu Chang's attack was not only fast but powerful. Yemo took it for himself and changed it a little bit, making it his. Wu Hong looked at Yemo in terror. Yemo's power was far out of his expectation. No wonder he could be friends with Wu Xueming. However, what scared Wu Hong the most wasn't Yemo's power, but his attitude of killing without flinching at all. Even in gang battles, no one dared to kill more than 10 people in the city. However, Yemo killed more than 10 in the blink of an eye, and after he did, he was still very calm. It was as though he didn't kill people but ants. "You are so cruel. You actually killed them all." Even Wang Chuan felt shivers by Yemo's killing attitude. Although they were ferocious and aggressive, they really didn't kill much. Yemo smiled and said, "I came to kill tonight. It just started. What are you worrying about? Who are you? Why are you messing with the metal river?" Sumu was also scared by Yemo's killing methods. Yemo smiled and said, "I messed with your metal river? Didn't you just say you were going to mess with me?" Sumu was at a loss for words, and Yemo couldn't be bothered talking to him. He continued, "If it's messing with metal river, then I'll tell you. If it wasn't due to Wu Xueming, I would have long killed all of Metal River in Luotsang last time. Do you think you have the capability for me to mess with? I just killed Qian Long Tu from Sinai Peninsula a few days ago, so I didn't expect to be killing at Metal River so quick now. Life is really a wonder." "What? You killed Qian Long Tu?" Sumu and Wang Chuan finally couldn't keep calm anymore as their face showed extreme shock.